Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku know how to use chakra after eating a fruit, and got Harem movie. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, PainX65, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. A young boy around the age close to 4 years old with green eyes and black curly hair with green highlights walked side by side with his parents. Currently they are on a family vacation. The family of 3 were taking a vacation to Okinawa. The trio were currently walking along the beach before they had stopped to enjoy the beach. After a while the child had gotten curious, as he heard his mother call out, "Don't go too far, Izuku," she told her son. "He'll be fine, Inko," her husband reassured her. Inko had short dark green hair with a ponytail on the left along with green eyes. "I hope so, Hisashi." Hisashi had short, smooth back black hair with matching eyes. "It'll be okay. I'm just worried about him," she said. "He's near that age where kids start showing their quirks." Hisashi threw his arm around his wife and gave her a reassuring smile. "It'll be fine. Izuku will one day show his quirk. He could be a late bloomer," he said. "Didn't your cousin awaken her quirk later than expected?" "She did. See? And besides, even if he never awakens his quirk, he's still our son." Inko smiled at her husband and nodded. He was their son, and they would always love him. Quirk or no quirk. The curious explorer Izuku had explored the nearby rocks as he looked in the small areas of water cut off from the ocean. However, the further he got, the more the sand turned to rock, and soon, the young child of almost 4 spotted a hole surrounded by rocks. The small green black-haired child titled his head as he looked at the hole. "Is it a cave?" he wondered. The adventurous nature of a child his age had kicked in, as he easily fit through the small hole, which for him was slightly bigger. "Dark," he whispered, as he walked further into the small cave. Young Izuku's eyes spotted a small light ahead. He titled his head to the side, as he looked at the source of light. The source of the light was fruit. The source of this light was a fruit. Izuku had no idea what type of fruit it was, due to the glow of it, as it was shining light. The fruit was connected to the top of what seemed to be a tree growing underground. It seemed to be a very old tree, as the top of said tree was pretty withered with the sole exception of the fruit, as if untouched by time. Izuku's face brightened up as he gently touched the fruit. Maybe he'll give it to his father or mother? Yeah, as a gift. He plucked the sole fruit from the tree as he made his way back to the cave's entrance. He had no idea why there was a tree located underground at the beach, nor did he pay it any mind. However, as he got to the entrance, his stomach growled. He looked down at the shiny fruit. He was hungry. Well, he found the fruit, and it was growing on a tree, so that made it his right? But it was originally a gift for his mother and father. Hunger plagued his mind as he tried to decide. The fruit was his. The fruit was a gift. He found it. It was going to be a gift. Izuku held the fruit up as he made his decision. He ate the fruit. In his child's state of mind, the fruit was his, and while it was a gift, he was hungry. His parents would understand. It wasn't really the first time it happened. As Izuku ate the fruit and left nothing behind, he felt odd. He felt odd in a good way, like he could take on the world. He felt like he had something strong, something powerful. A sudden burst of energy and power coursed through him. He climbed out of the cave and looked around. Barely any time had passed as he decided to go back to his parents. The cave's entrance collapsed as he had already left. He looked down at the water surface and could have sworn his eyes were different. If for just a second, his eyes weren't green. He blinked, and they were back. Just for a second, they were different. Izuku just kept his smile as he ran back to his parents, unaware of the power he had obtained. Izuku slept after he returned from the cave with the fruit. His parents assumed he was just tired after playing, and put him to bed after returning from the beach. Izuku turned slightly. As he groggily woke up, he was still drowsy, but it almost seemed like the world was different. For starters, he could see behind him. However, Izuku's eyelids drooped before slowly closing, as he went back to sleep, curling into the warm blankets that covered him. It had been a few days since Izuku and his family had returned home from their family vacation, and it was the very same day that Inko would gain a shock. She walked through the open door. As she went to check up on her son, she saw that he was facing away from her, and when she was about to open her mouth, her son greeted her. "Morning," he cheerfully greeted me. "Izuku?" She wondered how her son knew she was there. She didn't make too much noise, as she thought he would still be sleeping this early. It was then he turned around. "Yes, Mom?" he asked, as Inko saw her child. Her jaw dropped as she looked at her son. His eyes had changed. Izuku's normal green eyes were now pupilless white eyes, at least, as far as she could tell seeing. As she saw some of his pupils before it practically disappeared, along with the veins around the sides that bulged also disappeared. "Is this Izuku's quirk?" She blinked as she saw Izuku look at her expression. "Izuku, can you turn around and do that thing again with your eyes?" Izuku happily nodded before he turned around, and the veins popped around the sides of his eyes. Tell me what you see, Izuku, she said, as she started using her own quirk. Her quirk allowed her to attract small objects towards her. You're pulling the toy car towards you, Izuku said, as Inko noticed a slight pause, but it disappeared for a second. It seems he has a quirk that grants near 360-degree vision, she thought. Where did it disappear, Izuku? Tell me when it disappears. She moved her finger around his back before he told her it disappeared. His blind spot is the back of his neck. Congratulations, Izuku. She hugged her son who deactivated his quirk, and returned the hug. You have your quirk. Izuku blinked, as he frowned a little. Is there something wrong? No, he said with a shake of his head. It's just that back in Okinawa. Okinawa? She asked with a smile. Yeah, that place. It's just that when we were there, it felt like I dreamed of this, he said, motioning to his eye quirk. But is it normal to have two? Huh, was all she could say. She didn't know how to respond to that. What do you mean by two? Well, I have my white eyes, he said, but I also created water. Inko just gave her son a look. Izuku, we all create water. No, he blushed. I'll show you. Her arm was tugged by her son into the bathroom. As Izuku looked down into the tub. Watch, he said, as he puffed his cheeks. He then opened his mouth, as water gushed from his mouth into the tub like a mini waterfall. And Inko's eyes widened a lot. Mummy? He pulled her arm before she fell backwards, and she fainted. Huh, the father of Izuku said. Can you repeat that? Izuku has two quirks. How? He asked. Maybe they're part of the same quirk. One uses his eyes to see near 360 degrees, and the other allows him to shoot water from his mouth. Hisashi rubbed his chin before he smiled. I got an idea. And what's that? If it's two, then it's understandable, right? Some people's quirks are a combination of their parents. Either a combination that uses both, like if both of ours were combined, or somewhere one can use both separately, but still counts as one quirk. Then, we'll see if he has a third. He beamed. Just to be safe, we'll take him somewhere where there are no people around, and see if he has a third quirk. Inko raised her eyebrow. Why not around people? She asked. Hisashi rubbed the back of his neck. I kinda want to see if he gained my quirk, he said sheepishly. Inko just shook her head with a smile. Why are we here? Asked Izuku. We are here to see if you can use more than one quirk, his father said. I know of your water making, and your eyes, but can you breathe fire? I don't know. Don't worry. We're just going to find out, his father smiled, as he took off his black business jacket. Watch me, okay? He turned around to the pond before he blew out fire from his mouth. Wow, his son started in awe. Your turn. His father gave him an encouraging smile, as he flung his jacket over his shoulder. Izuku nervously walked up, and gulped. He had no idea if he could do it, but he didn't want to disappoint his dad if he couldn't, so he breathed in, and released a fireball from his mouth. Izuku had no idea how he did it, but just as when he used his eyes, and shot out the water, he felt some type of energy being used. He turned around with a smile, as he looked at his father only to see his jaw dropped. Did I do bad? He asked. No, his father quickly said. You did well, Izuku. Really? He smiled a little. Of course, it's just amazing, he beamed. But Izuku, did you feel anything? When I shot the ball of fire I felt something, just like when I shot the water. Hisashi rubbed his chin. Hey Izuku. Yes, Dad? Izuku smiled up at his father, as he grabbed his hand, as they began their walk home. You don't mind if we meet a friend of mine later, do you? Why? Just to check if your quirk has multiple quirks or just one quirk, he then quickly added. It's nothing bad, it's perfectly safe. Okay, he beamed. But won't Mom be upset if we don't go home or bring here? Hisashi nervously laughed. Let's go, and get your mother, Hisashi, a female voice said. What brings you here? My son. He motioned to his son. The woman raised an eyebrow. Is there something wrong? No, he waved his hands. There's nothing wrong. It's just that we want to identify his quirk. His quirk? She looked between father and son, and saw the similarities between them. She also saw how he hid behind his father's leg. She couldn't help but giggle and coo at the cute child. She kneeled down to his height and smiled. Hello, Izuku. She greeted me with a kind smile. Hello, he said shyly. My name's Megumi, and I'm a friend of your father, she said. Do you know why you're here? Izuku nodded. Can you show me your 3 abilities? She watched as Izuku released a stream of water, a stream of fire like his father, and finally the veins around his now white eyes bulged, and the ability to see nearly 360 degrees around him. She also learned that there was definitely more to his white eyes seeing, as he saw through the white curtain where her bag was, but not enough to see what was within. You got anything, Megumi? Hisashi asked his old friend. His wife would have been here with him, but she had prior engagements. I have a theory, she said. However, Izuku, you said you felt something when using them, right? Izuku nodded, as she looked down at her findings, and back to Hisashi. It seems that it might be a single quirk after all, she said. How so? He asked. I believe that your son's quirk is similar to that of a similar quirk called creation, she said with a sly smirk. Well, with a lot of differences of course. Hisashi raised an eyebrow, as Megumi continued. It seems that your son's quirk creates certain things he wishes, like creation. She flipped her long black hair tied into a low ponytail back over her shoulder, as she continued, as Izuku was preoccupied with a poster on the wall. However, unlike creation, your son's quirk requires a different type of energy he possesses. This energy allows him to create these abilities, like fuel for a car. So Izuku's quirk is energy that forms to his will. Sort of, she said. I don't know the extent, but I assume that there might be a limit to what he can make if you will. Not only does he need to recharge his fuel, which seems to regenerate or refuel over time, but also what he wills his energy into along with his imagination. I think I get what you're saying. He had a quirk that allows him to create certain images of his imagination, but needs the energy that the quirk is? Yes, kinda. As I said before, there might be a limit, and it might not work with all of his imaginations, she said. He could dream of creating a cat, that may happen, but creating a replica of a hero like a All Might or Eraserhead, then that might not work. So there's a limit to what his quirk can do. Hisashi looked over to his son. What shall we name it then? Well, let's leave Izuku to name his quirk, she offered, as Hisashi had called his son back. Yes? He asked. Izuku, you heard about your quirk, right? Megumi asked. Yeah. Does it let me use different things to a certain extent? Megumi nodded. Yes, we don't know the limit, but your quirk can't do everything, she said. However, that's not too important right now for you. What is important for you right now is the name. What do you want to call it? Izuku looked back at the poster. That, Megumi, and Hisashi looked towards the poster. Chakra? They said. Yeah, Chakra, he beamed. Well, it certainly is easy to remember, she smiled. Chakra, his father tested. I like it. Then Chakra it is then. She wrote it down. Thanks for this, Megumi. It's nothing, Hisashi, she waved him off. You know, I do have a daughter his age. How about we do that play date we said we would when we have kids? Hisashi sighed with a smile. Can't believe you actually remember that, he said. You were so forgetful back then. But that is a yes. It'll be nice for him to start getting some friends. He'll be starting school soon. Then they can go to the same one. She blinked for a second before she blushed. Hey, I'm not that forgetful. Or do you forget that, Dragon? Now it was his turn to be embarrassed. Don't bring up that old nickname. Dragon? His son innocently asked. That's right. It's because he breathes fire, like a dragon. Hisashi could only sigh, as his son looked at him with awe, that he was a dragon. Thanks, Megumi. No problem, Dragon. Hisashi looked at his son with a smile. His mind briefly wondered if his son and Magnum's daughter would be old friends like they were. He was also curious about what else his son would show. After the naming of his quirk, the years slowly rolled by. Izuku got older, and started to go to school. Right now he is 14 years old, turning 15 real soon as he made his way to his junior high school. His white eyes turned to the side, as he caught sight of a large man wearing a black vest, blue jeans with dark purple-brown dreads. However, he wasn't just large, he was a giant. However, due to the commotion that was happening, this man was a villain. Izuku just watched on when the villain was now facing off against a hero. A hero by the name of Kamui Woods was currently fighting said villain. He wore a black dark blue unitard with a wooden helmet, wooden gloves that reached past his forearm, a wooden belt, and wooden shoes. Izuku took note of the hero's quirk, which was named Lumber. The quirk allowed the wooden hero to generate and control wood from his body. I wonder if I can do something similar, he thought before he decided to move on. The villain seemed to be one who got backed into a corner and lost control of his quirk. Izuku had progressed with his quirk to the point that he learned a few interesting things about it. He learned that the energy he named Chakra was quite large. He had quite the reserves when it came to Chakra. He could also mold his Chakra techniques with some costing more Chakra than others. For example, he learned how to make a floating sphere of water, for example. He had a few more ideas such as combining elements he could use together, such as his fire and water Chakra abilities. Right now he was focusing on his fire and water abilities before discovering any other abilities, as well as working on his other abilities also. What did that mean? Well, he discovered that he could manipulate earth. That included rocks, stones, even the ground he was standing on. That type of earth with his Chakra. He did wonder if he could manipulate other elements, but decided to stick with working his fire and water for the time being, as well as his martial arts style. During the time he was discovering his abilities, along with some friends of his, he decided to use his eyes in his combat style. It was mainly around pressure points and poking them in basic terms. He called it the gentle fist. With his white eyes, he could see a person's body, more specifically their pressure points. He could hit a pressure point with his style, and temporarily cause someone to be paralyzed, or even fix dislocations like a dislocated shoulder. He decided to give his eyes a simple and easy name, the Byakugan. As he left, the last thing he saw of the battle site was a woman with a gigantification quirk with long voluminous blonde hair with 2 curled strands, and violet-colored eyes with white pupils, and wearing a purple and cream-colored skin-tight bodysuit that was accented with orange stripes, 3 peculiar orange diamond-shaped dots on the purple located under her chest, and a purple domino mask with horn-like protrusions on the sides. She had taken down the unaware villain, and made a pun about her ass, as she made her debut or something while sticking her ass out. Izuku blinked before continuing on. As many men took photos, he continued on his way. He didn't want to be late. Izuku thankfully wasn't late, as he sat at his desk, as the lessons concluded, and now they were given a break. He leaned back in his chair, as he stared up at the ceiling. I wonder if I combine my fire element with water? What will that create? He wondered. Would it boil or just cancel each other out? Then comes the question of if can change the water to become solid or something similar to mist. Thinking about your quirk again? A familiar voice to the green-haired teen asked. He turned his head to see his old friend since before he had started school. Hey Momo, he said, as he stopped leaning. Momo had long black hair with bangs to the right side of her face, and tied back in a large, spiky ponytail. Despite being taller than him, she had a mature physique for her age. He had met Momo when he was just 4 years old. She was the daughter of Megumi. Izuku was originally going to go to some schools closer to home, but after becoming friends with Momo, he started to go to some schools that were a bit further away. Due to being friends since they were 4, he considered her his best friend. I see you were thinking about your quirk yet again. Is that a bad thing? He asked. I just want to experiment with my quirk is all. Then can't you wait till you get into a hero school? She asked back. I understand your curiosity with a quirk like yours, but can't you wait until we have a chance to use it without consequence? Izuku slumped onto his desk. You're right. Anyways, what have you found out then? Huh. We both know that you experiment with your quirk. What did you discover? Oh, I think it would be better to show you rather than tell. Same place after school is over? She asked, as Izuku just nodded. Izuku felt like he had just blinked. 1 second he was in the classroom, next minute he was outside at the same location as his father, and he used their own fire abilities. So what do you have so far? His best friend asked. Well, I wasn't planning on showing you until he practiced with it more after I'm efficient in my other abilities. But here it goes. He placed his hands onto the ground, as a small solid wall of earth rose from the ground. Momo stared at the wall of earth before looking at Izuku. You can manipulate earth, as well? Izuku nodded hesitantly. While he liked his quirk with its many uses, it kind of felt like he removed a person's individuality with their own quirk. What if he encountered someone with a water quirk? What if he encountered someone with an electric-type quirk? Sure, some people had similar quirks. It wasn't uncommon to see 2 completely different people with the same type of quirks, such as the ability to manipulate fire, or the ability to manipulate the earth. You're certainly full of surprises when it comes to the different applications of your quirk. I guess? He rubbed the back of his head, as the earth wall crumbled away. Hey Momo. Yes, Izuku? She turned to him. What hero school are you planning to go to? Isn't it manners to tell me of yours first? I'm planning on going to the UA, he revealed. That's if I manage to get in, that is. Momo nodded at his choice of school. She noticed the look he sent her way that practically asked which school she planned to get into, which caused her to smile. I also plan on going to the UA, she told him. UA is the #1 high school for heroics after all. Izuku blushed in embarrassment. He kinda forgot about that. Well, I gotta get going, he said, as he picked up his bag. I'll see you later, Momo. I'm going to continue preparing myself for the entrance exams. Best of luck to you. Momo only had enough time to wave goodbye before she could give him something. She sighed, as he had already disappeared. Was it like this with her mother and his father? Izuku now stood in front of UA, also known as Yui, ready for the exams after his preparations. During the time before he had asked Momo about the hero schools, he had already begun to further improve himself at Tagoba Municipal Beach Park with all the trash there. He usually went to the beach park to practice his water abilities, but due to the trash there, it got in the way of his training, so he added it to his training. However, that did make the place popular again, so now there were people going to the beach, so he couldn't train with his quirk. That didn't stop him though. He walked into the building where he sat down, as the hero, Present Mike, was on the stage talking. He was a pretty tall man with long, spiky blonde hair, and a small mustache. He wore a pair of headphones with the word Hage written on the headband, and a pair of sunglasses, as well. His costume consisted of a black jacket with an upturned, studded collar, and studded shoulders, black pants with a studded belt, black boots, and black, fingerless gloves. Around his neck was a large collar that resembled an old stereo player that even had a speaker, play buttons, and a cassette tape. Welcome one, and all to my live show, he shouted. Everybody say hey. No one said a word. I got shivers down my spine too, listeners. Alright, examinees, I'm gonna give you the lowdown on how this'll go down. Are you ready? he asked. He's so loud everyone mentally winces. Now pay close attention, listeners. We'll be testing your mettle by running a 10-minute practice run at our replica city district. President Mike continued. You can take whatever you like. Everybody gather at the designated meeting area after the presentation, you dig? We'll be sprinkling a large number of villains over the battlefield, and they'll appear in 3 different varieties, with point values scaled according to difficulty. The hero told everyone. Using each of your individual quirks, dispatch as many villains as you can. Your goal, listeners, is to rack up a high score. And don't think about directly attacking any other competitors or any of that nasty anti-hero stuff, because that's against the rules, capiche? Excuse me, may I ask a question? Someone asked. He was a tall teen with black hair and rectangular half-rimmed glasses. His eyes and jaw were also somewhat rectangular. On the handout, there are clearly 4 types of villains listed. Such an error would be the height of embarrassment for a top-tier National Academy of Ye's caliber. The reason we are seated here today is because we seek guidance on the path to becoming model heroes. Okay, thanks for the segue. Much appreciated, Examinee 7111, President Mike said. The 4th type of villain you'll encounter is worth 0 points. Let's call them arena traps. Have any of you played Super Mario Bros. Before? You remember those things that'd go thwomp on you? There's a thing like that in each area. Their gimmick is that they rampage when crowded. I see, sounds like one of those stage hazards you just have to slip through and avoid, one said. This really is starting to resemble a video game, another said. The glasses-wearing teens bowed. Thank you very much. I apologize for being rude. Well, that's enough for me. I'll leave you all with a presentation on the school precepts of this academy of mine, the pro-hero shouted. As a certain hero by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte once said, a true hero never stops overcoming the misfortunes of life. Now let's move to the main event, Plus Ultra. And may you all suffer gladly the trials to come. Izuku looked at the area he would be participating in. It was bigger than he thought it would be. Man, I knew it would be big, but this is way bigger than I thought. I guess I should be thankful for the size, otherwise we'd be cramped. And start, shouted President Mike. What's the matter? There's no such thing as a countdown in a real battle. Run, consider the baton toss. As Izuku joined the others, they ran into the arena. He activated his Byakugan and used his eyes to his advantage to locate the robots. Thankfully, over the years of using his Byakugan, he had increased the range he could see. He went down some alleys away from the crowds as he found a 1-point robot. Quickly bringing his right hand to his mouth, he held his fingers to his mouth before he fired a large fireball, consuming the robot. Once the robot was destroyed, he continued onwards before taking out some more robots in the more desolate places. So these robots are programmed to go to where the majority of the candidates are. He noted, as he saw a 3-pointer look at him, and then a group of 3. It never reached the 3 due to being hit by a stream of flames, especially since it was hiding behind a building 2 before it chose its target. He managed to turn his head around just in case of an attack located at his blind spot. As he continued on, he continued to eliminate the robots, first by tracking them down with his Byakugan, followed next by hitting them with his fire chakra, and then, if any flames remain, putting them out with his water chakra. However, Izuku stopped. As his eyes widened, he saw the robot worth 0 points within a building. As he made his way over there, he took out some of the 1, 2, and occasionally 3-pointer machines on his way there. A strict time limit, and a vast battleground, nothing quite like it to bring everyone's ardor into the open and uncover their skills, a person said from within a dark room watching the candidates partake in the test. The ability to grasp the situation quickly and accurately, insight, the ability to stick a dynamic entry without ever being late to the party, agility, the ability to face any obstacle with coolness and composure, judgment, another said. And of course, sheer fighting prowess. We can gauge their respective levels of those foundational skills by way of the points system. Oh my, we've raked in a bumper crop this year, a third said. We can't be sure of that yet, a fourth said. Hey, that kid there, the third pointed to a white-eyed, green-haired teen. Is he heading in the direction of the 0.1? I think you're right. The second said, well, I was going to test their metal with it later, but I guess now is the time. With the press of a button, the robot activated. Izuku stopped as the large gimmick robot rose from the building. Izuku thought it was big within the large building, but it seemed that this place just wanted to one-up him. That's too big for my flames to destroy completely, he thought, as others ran from the robot. However, knowing when I am beat is the important oh no. His Byakugan saw a person under rubble. He found himself leap into action towards the person, whoever it was. My flames cannot engulf a robot this big, but I can always put more chakra into it, that's it. My water chakra. He puffed his cheeks as he reeled his head back, gathering water chakra in his stomach and mouth. He took aim. Water jet cutting. Water can cut through steel if the jet of water is at a high enough pressure. I just got to continue building it. The large robot moved its arm, with the intention of doing a swipe, and that's when Izuku fired the now high-pressure stream, as it easily cut off the robot's arm. It had raised its foot in retaliation, as he ran forth. It'll take too long for me to build up another water attack. Fire is out too unless I make a large flame, and I might catch people by accident. All I'm left is earth, but I only know how to manipulate the earth around me unless I can form it within me like fire, and water, and also on my body. Izuku had no more time to think about it, as the robot's foot started to come down. As he held out his fist, he gathered earth chakra, something he wasn't that much used to. His right arm started to get darker. After he was done gathering earth chakra into his right arm with the sole intention of destroying the robot, as well as saving the person beneath the rumble, he punched the gimmick robot's foot. Izuku blinked, as he felt no damage to himself after destroying the robot's foot, as it struggled for balance before falling backwards. One glance at his arm explained everything. I didn't think my earth chakra would do something like this. To think, it boosted not only my attacking power, but also my defensive capabilities to my arm also, the only indication being the darkening of my arm. Izuku stopped his mental rant, as he looked at the person in trouble. You saved me? The person was a girl. Why? Izuku smiled down at the person he had just saved. Isn't that what a hero is supposed to do? Save people when they're in danger? And with that the test was over. A week passed since the exams, as Izuku smiled blankly at the fish he was eating. Izuku? His mother tried to get his attention. Izuku, are you alright? Why are you smiling vacantly at the fish? Sorry, he apologized. I'm fine. The reason he was staring vacantly at the fish? He had just heard something about his best friend Momo. While he was still waiting for the results to come back, Momo had already been accepted into the U.A through official recommendations. Oh yeah, the results are due back today or tomorrow, right? Inko asked, as her son nodded. His mother had left the room, as he looked down at his hand. As he channeled earth chakra into it, he watched, as the hand's complexion turned darker than usually. He wondered if he could channel fire and water chakra the same way. When it came to his own chakra, he had to admit that he didn't have much time to experiment with it due to school, and the laws about using quirks outside of the privacy of your own home. Sure, he did use his quirk in private areas such as the beach when it had junk on it, as well as at the spot where he first used his fire chakra. Now that he was trying to get into a hero school, he had to increase the training of his quirk, as well as the experimentation. Now that he thought about it, he only channeled earth, fire, and water chakra while his eyes didn't require one of those elements. Could he just channel chakra as it is? Could he channel pure chakra by itself without any elements? Speaking of elements, if he could channel earth, water, and fire, would that mean he would be able to channel wind too? Would that also mean he could channel other elements? When it came to the basic elements, there was earth, water, fire, and wind. However, many different countries had a fifth element. The possibility of many different elements, using chakra without any of the elements that he knew of. He was definitely looking forward to experimentation. Izuku. He turned to face his mother, who held an envelope. It's here. He took the envelope from his mother's hands as he went into his room. Holding the envelope with the Udata symbol, he opened it, as he pre-recorded a message. Izuku walked out of his room, and gave his mother a smile. Izuku? She asked, seeing the look on his face. I got in, was all he said before he found himself wrapped in his mother's arms. Congratulations, Izuku. Thanks. The next day Izuku was up early. Much earlier than usual. He left a note on the fridge so his mother wouldn't freak out when she noticed he wasn't here. Actually, it was the same note he had used in the past. After closing the locked door behind him, he headed off to a secluded location where he could practice in private. Once he got to an isolated place, he began to train. Izuku was currently wearing his training uniform. He wore a black gi with short sleeves, black hakama, fingerless gloves, and wraps on his ankles. It was time to experiment with chakra. From a nearby pond, he was able to use the water from that to form into a snake before he went to train with earth. There was some time before the day he officially started Yui, and he intended on getting as much experimentation in as he could. Okay, so if my earth is strong against water, and that's strong against fire, that would mean fire would beat wind, logically, he said, as he flexed his fingers. But what would that beat? Because it sure won't beat earth. Lightning? He wondered. It would make sense seeing as lightning can travel through earth. That would make a complete circle of his elements. He had to wonder what pure chakra would be classified as. Maybe he'll experiment more before he found a way to classify it. Right now he could incorporate his techniques into the elements, like when he created the water snake. He could also incorporate it into his close quarters combat, seeing as he can use earth chakra in his arms. That also went for his gentle fist, as he could use chakra to make it more effective. He sat down with his legs crossed and closed his eyes. He remembered Megumi's words when it came to his abilities. While there was a limit to what he could possibly do, and of course his reserves. Right now it was akin to imagination or Momo's quirk. If Momo wanted to make a shield, she could just make a shield. If she wanted to create a unique design on the shield, then she can create a shield with that same design through her imagination. Imagination. Izuku knew what he had to do. He had to get more creative in his usage of chakra. His eyes flung open as he placed a hand on the ground before a cane, or rather a staff, came up from the ground. He grabbed the staff as he stood before twisting the staff, as he slammed his foot down, as columns of earth sprouted out from the ground. He didn't have any training dummies, so these columns would have to do. Broken columns scattered the area. A powerful gale blew through the same area. Izuku stood, as his hands were clasped together, as he compressed wind chakra, and transformed it into the powerful gale that blew through before. Due to the training, his GI became slightly loose. He sat down, as the sun shone brightly overhead. I think I made some decent progress. He glanced around the area of broken rubble. He had made a decent amount of progress this morning when he worked on earth abilities, and his wind was off to a good start. Man, I'm hungry, better head back. He stood up after fixing up his GI, and headed back towards home. The days passed, as Izuku made it a routine to head out into the area where he usually trained. He did want to try some pure non-elemental chakra training, but some of the ideas required a second, and willingly volunteered. But now it was the first day of high school, more specifically the first day of learning to become a hero. Now Izuku was dressed in the Udata uniform, as he headed towards the door. I'm leaving now, he said, as he said goodbye to his mother, as he headed off to the UA. He looked around the building, looking for the classroom 1A. The building was truly large, and the door to the classroom just furthered that statement. Upon opening the door, he saw the classroom, and the students. Don't put your legs on the desk, the one with glasses said to another student. Don't you think that's disrespectful towards your classmates? No, as a matter of fact, I don't think so. The teen with ash blonde, spiky hair, and red eyes said with his feet on the desk. Which middle school are you from anyway, you 2-bit extra? A private Ahem. I'm from Somei Junior High School, he said. The name's Tenya Ida. Somei? Well, aren't you an elite? Seems I've got a reason to fucking end you after all. What a nerve. You want to be a hero? The glasses-wearing turned to see Izuku walk in before making a line towards him. Hello, I'm Tenya Ida from Somei. I overheard I'm Izuku Midoriya. He greeted me. Nice to meet you, Ida. Midoriya, I must hand it to you, Ida said. You divined the actual nature of the practical skills exam, didn't you? I was blind to it. As Ida continued, Izuku just stared. He's overreacting. Then a girl with shoulder-length brown hair and big round brown eyes walked in. She sported 2 long locks of hair besides her face, and a short bob at the back. Oh hey, it's you, she said. Looks like we're in the same class. By the way, you took out that giant robot like it was nothing. I wonder about today's ceremony? Or is it guidance counselor stuff today? Oh, and the teacher, what'll they be like? I'm so anxious, like wow. I don't know, but I think we should get to our seats. Yes, I agree with Midoriya, Ida said. It will be disrespectful to whoever our teacher is. If you're gonna be hunting for buddies, do it somewhere else, a large caterpillar said, causing the 3 to look down at the ground. Sadly, it wasn't a large caterpillar, but a man in a sleeping bag. This is the Department of Heroics, however, as he said that he had taken out a juice box and immediately drank all of it in a single suck. The man in the sleeping bag stood up and got out of the sleeping bag. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, he said. Life is short, kids. You're always lacking in common sense. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shoyuta Aizawa. Pleasure meeting you. Their homeroom teacher had shoulder-length black hair, with some hanging down in the front of his face, a half-shaven beard, and a small mustache. He wore a dark, long-sleeved shirt, and black pants with a scarf made up of dozens of loose bands around his neck at all times. Get changed into your PE uniforms immediately, and then shove off to the PE grounds, he said. A Quirk apprehension test? Nearly everyone asked. What about the ceremony and the guidance counselor meeting? The brown-haired girl asked. If you want to be heroes, we don't have time for frilly niceties, Aizawa said. You all understand the school's reputation for freedom on campus well. That freedom flows for us senseis too. Softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength test, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercises, seated toe touch. He listened. These are all activities you know from middle school, naturally. Physical tests where you were barred from using your quirks. He turned to the class as he reached to find something. The country still hasn't gotten around to standardizing those sorts of records or keeping track of average performance levels. Well, that's negligence on the part of the MEXT. He turned to the ash blonde from before. Bakugu, how far could you pitch a softball in middle school? 67 meters, the ash blonde said. Try using your quirk this time around, the washed-up teacher said, as he threw him a softball. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything you do is fine. Don't hold back. You got it. He then threw the ball high into the air. Die, was everyone's thought. Before anything else, one must know what they're capable of, Aizawa said, as he showed them Bakugo's pitch of 705 meters. This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation. Awesome, that looks so fun. 705 meters? Unreal! Can we really use our quirks now? That's the Department of Heroics for you. It looks fun, you say? Aizawa asked. It was like something snapped, as the air around their teacher changed, almost as if he was leaking the intent to kill. So you were planning to spend your 3 years here having a good old time? What happened to becoming heroes? He asked, as the killing intent seemed to double. Alright then. In that case, a new rule. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged hopelessly and instantly expelled. Our freedom means we dispense with students as we please. Welcome to this Department of Heroics. The kid who ranks last gets expelled? The brown-haired girl asked. This is our first day here, but even if it weren't, that's just too unreasonable. Natural disasters, massive accidents, ego-mad villains, all kinds of calamities can happen when we least expect them. Japan's now positively drenched in unreasonableness, the teacher said with half-lidded eyes, and it's our job, as heroes, to reverse it all and restore reason. If you were counting on a friendly chat at the local McDonald's after school, that's too bad. From now on, for the next 3 years, all you can expect from your life at Yui is one hardship after the next. This is plus ultra, he told them. I expect you to overcome these trials and climb to the top. Now then, that was the demonstration, he continued. Time to step up to the plate. Soon everyone went to get ready for the 50-meter dash. Seems we are in the same class as Momo, the green-haired teen said. That's good. Momo smiled. It's good that we're in the same class. Her smile died down a little bit. Sorry about the recommendation thing. Izuku blinked but smiled. It's fine, Momo, he said. You were recommended for a reason. But still, it's perfectly fine, he reassured her. Besides, if I got a recommendation, I would rather go through a test though. It was fun to use my quirk in combat. You know, you could have gotten one too. That's in the past, Momo. He waved it off. That's because of your quirk, really, she said, giving him a look. Just by the name, it's sure to get people confused on what it could do. That, and you rarely showed it off in school, only out of school in private. Izuku thought about it. As I said, it's in the past now. Nothing we can do unless there's a time-traveling quirk. They watched, as Aizawa called the first pair over to the first trial. It seems we're starting these trials now. Are you going to actively show your quirk now? Are you? If I need to use it, I will. Do you think he was serious about the expulsion? I don't think so, she said while trying not to look unsure. That expression of yours isn't helping. The first trial was the 50-meter dash. Ida easily got a time of 3.4 seconds thanks to his quirk engine, which was kind of explanatory once you saw his legs. The brown-haired girl had touched her shoes before running, and gotten a time of 7.15 seconds. Her quirk was zero gravity. A blonde-haired youth used his quirk called Naval Laser. It was also pretty explanatory. The pushing of your quirks to their utmost limits shows me how much room for growth each of them has, and allows me to take note of what they can and can't do just yet, Aizawa thought, as he watched, as the next pair of runners went up. Let's see how you runts use your creativity to keep yourselves afloat. Bakugo had crossed his arms, and was ready to go, as Izuku got into the running position. I can channel chakra into my legs, but I could do the same with wind chakra. He thought. And I can also use wind chakra to push me from behind. He gathered the wind chakra before both of them launched off. Bakugo had created explosions from his palms, as Izuku used the wind chakra to give him a boost, especially from wind from behind. 4.15 seconds, the machine beeped. I wonder if that was too much, or should I use much more chakra, he thought of himself, as he proceeded to the next trial that lay in wait. He had plenty of chakra left to spare, and he wondered if he should be in the middle or use more, and appear higher up on the scores. The second trial was the grip strength test. Instead of channeling earth chakra, he channeled pure chakra. He was quite curious to see if pure chakra would do with grip strength. He looked down to see the numbers, and was genuinely impressed. It was nowhere near the tall teen with the tentacle-like arms, but he did manage to get close to the 100-point mark. He briefly wondered if his earth could make it go farther. The third trial was the standing long jump. Izuku gathered his wind chakra, and the same as the 50-meter dash, jumped with the boost of the wind at his back, and landed much further than he had anticipated. He immediately went on to the fourth trial, which was the sustained sideways jumps. A very short teen used his quirk to jump back and forth between orbs that repelled him back and forth. Izuku had to just jump side to side normally. The non-elemental chakra boosted his side-to-side jumping somewhat, but he wasn't really that confident in it. The fifth trial was the pitch. The brown-haired girl used her zero-gravity quirk to send the softball practically out of orbit. She scored infinitely. Infinity? One said. Holy cow! She got infinitely. Now it was Izuku's turn to throw the ball. He was quite positive that even if he failed this one, he did pretty well with the past 4 trials, and the next 3 could be the same. He didn't know if his chakra would work for throwing. Grip maybe, but not throwing unless he could use his chakra on the softball. He could also do the same before like the long jump, but focused on the ball rather than himself. And with the gathering of chakra he got into position, and then threw the softball, as it sailed with the wind pushing it further than before. After getting his score he walked off. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, as he watched Izuku walk off. Out of all the students, he had seen all of them use their quirk at least once during the whole test. However, he saw Izuku during entrance exams, and he had to say, he wasn't showing his quirk. He could control fire, water, and do something with his arm causing it to make it darker and stronger. Then he could see where the robots were, including the gimmick robot. He clearly said no, he didn't say anything about the use of quirks. Shame. But since everyone else was using their quirks well at least once, then it would be fair if Midoriya was also using his quirk too. As Izuku was about to walk to the next trial, Aizawa had stopped him using his scarf, which was a steel wire alloy woven with carbon nanofibers. Izuku saw that his eyes went red. He knew who he was simply by the use of weapons and quirk. Aizawa could erase the quirk of anyone that he looks at, but when he blinks the effect turns off. Midoriya, I understand that you want to keep your quirk somewhat hidden, but everyone else is using their quirk at least once, he said. I have temporarily turned your quirk off. I want you to use it once during the tests. I realize I haven't mentioned it, but with a quirk like yours you could say I'm curious. Erase my quirk? Izuku's tone changed, and Aizawa noticed. Yes, However, the veins around Izuku suddenly bulged, as he gave Aizawa a blank yet menacing stare. Are you trying to take my chakra? He asked, and it was the same as when he threatened the student with the lowest mark of being expelled. Killing intent. However, it was simply directed at him, seeing as no one else felt it. It was odd. From what he saw during the exams, this wasn't Midoriya. The veins around his eyes bulged, so that's his quirk, which allowed him to look through walls, Aizawa thought before his eyes widened. Wait, he shouldn't be able to use his quirk. Unless I blinked without. No, I didn't blink. Why wasn't it erased? Is it simply too strong? Or did I take out just one part of his quirk? However, he saw that Izuku blinked, and came to his senses, as he rubbed the side of his head. Sorry, sensei, he said, but I was using my quirk during the trials. Really? He asked. Just what is your quirk? He asked, as he retracted his scarf, and blinked. Well, it's kind of hard to explain here, and now, but it has many uses. Oh, well anyway, continue on. Aizawa watched. As Izuku walked on to the next trial, he seemed almost protective. Soon the trials came to an end, as Aizawa showed the scores. Oh yeah, that whole expulsion thing was a lie, he said, much to the shock of the class. It was a logical ruse to pull out your best performances. Come on guys, use your brains. Of course it was just a ruse, Momo said. And right. Yep. With that it's over, the homeroom teacher said. Your curriculum sheets are back in the classroom, so give them an once over. They all watched, as their homeroom teacher walked away, probably suffering withdrawal symptoms of not being in his sleeping bag. Is there a problem? A mouse asked, or rather an animal with the face of a bear, nose, and tail of a mouse, and dog paws asked. The male animal also had a scar going across his right eye. He wore an elegant suit with large shoes. This was the principal of UA. Well, there's something that worries me, an extremely tall, and overly muscular man, who resembled an American superhero, said. He had blue eyes, and blonde hair with 2 spikes of hair pointing up similar to that of AAV for victory sign. Well, what seems to be bothering you, All Might? Well, Mr. Principal, my concern is actually one of the students. Oh, which one is that? Well, it's his quirk that worries me, All Might said. The quirk of one Izuku Midoriya. Alright, class, tell me where the mistake is in this next English sentence example present, Mike said, as he was teaching the class. Who knows the answer? Everybody hands up, and raises them high. Despite being a classroom to learn how to be a hero, that didn't mean that they should be neglecting normal studies. Throughout the day, they attended lessons that would be expected in a normal high school. But now, it's me, a loud voice belonging to the number 1 hero said, coming through the door, like a normal person. I can't believe it. All Might's really gonna be teaching us, one student said. That design's so Silver Age, another brought up. That art style clashes so much it's giving me goosebumps. Foundational Hero Studies, he said, as he got into a pose. For this class, we'll be building up your hero foundation through various trials. He then held out a sign with the world battle on it. Let's jump right in with this. The trial of battle. Upon saying that, the class got pumped. And to go with your first battle, we've prepared the gear we had you send in requests to match your quirks. The side of the wall opened up to reveal numbers corresponding to the students' seat numbers. Our battle gear. Awesome, they cheered. Get changed, and we'll be ready to go. Everyone gathers at the beta grounds, All Might said. The garb you bring into the battlefield is vitally important, boys and girls. He stopped at the door with one last look towards the students. And don't forget, from here on out, you're all officially heroes. Everyone was in their hero outfit, as Izuku walked out to the beta grounds. Alright, let's see what you're made of, All Might shouted. It's time for the trial of battle. As Izuku listened to the number 1 hero, he stood next to Momo. You know, you kind of look like a ninja with that getup, Momo said, as she saw her friend's costume. He wore a sleeveless black shirt which sported a face mask that covered the lower half of his face, long black pants, and matching boots. He also had a steel gray flak jacket, as armor, metal arm guards, and fingerless black gloves that went to his biceps. Over this he wore a long-sleeved dark green coat with a black flame pattern around the hem, around the wrists of the loose sleeves, and around the edge of the hood that was currently pulled up over his head. Really? He asked, as he fiddled with the face mask and hood. I can see you had your quirk in mind when creating your costume. Momo wore a simple red, skin-tight outfit that exposed most of her torso, arms, and legs, with a large belt. This allowed her to use her quirk much more easily. Yes, it does allow me to use my quirk more efficiently, she said. You'll see. In fact, take 2 steps, and you'll be there. All Might's voice boomed. This will be an indoor battle trial. The class was practically enraptured. As All Might continued, villain cleanup is usually seen out in the open, but statistically, the better part of it is an indoor job. Most acts of villainy are committed indoors. Imprisonment house arrests the black market in this hero-saturated society. Why any villain with intelligence is lurking in the shadows. His voice boomed. For this test, you'll separate into villain and hero groups for a 2-on-2 team battle. What about the foundational training? Asked a short, slim girl with a frog-like appearance with long, dark teal hair which was tied into a bow on her back. She also had very wide eyes with pure black irises and distinctive lower eyelashes. Her hero costume was a green and black skin-tight suit with yellow linings which imitate a frog's skin markings. She also wore goggles on her head, gloves, and boots with frog-like designs. This is foundational training, All Might replied. Only this time, there won't be any robots, so it'd have been okay to just destroy. So how do we determine who wins and loses? Asked Momo. Is it okay if we just blow them away? Bakugo asked. He wore a fitted black sleeveless v-neck tank top with an orange X with the top half bordered by his shirt collar. His costume also had a seemingly metallic neck brace fashioned and used as a collar with 3 holes in both sides. The sleeves reached from within his large grenade-like gauntlets to his biceps. He also wore a belt which also carried grenades, and had a hero mask on his face that had a large, flare-shaped cloth. Is there a threat of expulsion like with Aizawa-sensei's exercise? Asked the brown-haired gravity girl when he learned that her name was Ochako Uraraka. She wore a skin-tight suit with detached sleeves, knee-high boots, belt, helmet, collar, and thick, round bracers with handles attached to them. If we're separating into different groups, what would be the best way to do so? Asked Ida. He wore a black one-piece suit with a high collar, over which he wears various pieces of armor, including a helmet that covers his entire head, a metal collar around his neck, decorative mufflers extending back from his midriff, and metal vambraces that extend past his elbows. His costume also included specialized metal boots that extended up past his knees which were specialized for his quirk. Doesn't this cape look killer on me? Asked the naval laser user. He had a slim body, and slightly long blonde hair, along with long eyelashes and bright eyes. His costume is violet in color, having the shape of a lean knight's armor with a belt with a ring-shaped buckle that allowed him to use his quirk with a wing-shaped visor. I can't hear you if you speak all at once. The number 1 hero pulled out a crib sheet, as he read off it. For this training, we'll have some villains guarding a nuclear weapon they intend on deploying. The heroes must stop them, and their nefarious scheme before it's too late. If the heroes capture the villains or reach the nuclear core before the time runs out, they win. If the villains manage to keep the core the whole time or capture the heroes, they win. He put the crib sheet away, as he pulled up a lottery box. Your teammates and opponents will be chosen by lottery. Is that really how we'll do it? Ida asked. Well, some heroes are forced to team up with other heroes they might not know very well, Izuku said. It might be testing that. I see. Please continue. Let's get this underway. All Might raised his fist into the air. Come, and take turns with the lottery. Soon the students were paired up with one another. Team A was Momo and Uraraka. Team B was Ida, and the team with the laser naval quirk, his name was Yuga Aoyama. Team C was Bakugo, and a red-haired teen named Izuru Kirishima. Kirishima had spiky red hair that looked like horns, and a scar above his right eye which kind of looked like a single long eyelash. He wore a vest that consisted of 2 shoulder pads that are shaped like gears that wrapped around his shoulders while his chest was left uncovered. He wore what seemed like a skirt with a ripped pattern over pants with an arm belt. He also wore a mask around his mouth. Team D was the frog-like girl, Tsuyu Ajiri, and a girl named Mina Ashido. Ashido had pink skin, and short, messy light pink hair. Her eyes had black sclera, and yellow irises, as well as having 2 yellow horns on her forehead. Her hero costume consisted of a sleeveless purple and teal unitard with a camouflage-like design over which she wears a sleeveless cropped jacket with fur trimming along with purple boots with yellow padding. Team E was Izuku, and he was paired up with Kyuka Jiru, a girl with short purple hair and asymmetric bangs. Her most notable feature was her plug-like earlobes. She wore a black jacket, a long peach-colored shirt, black pants, and boots with stereos in them. She also sported 2 small, red triangle facial marks just below her eyes, and a plain black choker. Team F was Kuji Kuda, a tall, muscular teen with his head having the form of a rock, which was unevenly shaped and pointed at the top of his head with a square-shaped jaw. He wore yellow with red lining shoes, and his outfit was primarily yellow with some red which looked like a short-sleeved yellow, and red shirt with what looked like teeth on the front, and yellow shorts. He was paired up with Hanta Siro. Siro was a tall, lean teenager with dark, shoulder-length hair. He sported almond-shaped eyes, and a simplistic-looking grin. His outfit was a full-body suit with a futuristic design, similar to that of a biker uniform, and a helmet that looked like a cross between a motorcycle helmet and a tape dispenser. Team G was a completely invisible girl named Toru Hagakure. Her hero outfit seemed to be gloves and boots. She was paired with Meza Shuji. Shuji was very tall with hair that swooped down in front of his face. He wore a mask that covered all his features below his eyes, and had 6 arms that were connected kind of like bat wings in a sense. He wore a sleeveless light blue shirt with a connecting dark blue face mask, long light blue pants with dark blue stripes on the sides, and dark blue boots along with a dark blue belt with a gold buckle with the design sharing the same pattern as the 6 silver ones on his shirt. Team H was Mashireo Ojiro. He was a teen with blonde hair, very small eyes, muscular build, and a large tail with a hairy tip. He wore a white karate-like outfit with a partially furred collar, and a hole behind his tail. He was teamed up with Fumikage Tokoemi, a relatively short person with a bird-shaped head, spiky hair with red eyes, a striped red choker, a short beak, and human teeth. His hero costume consisted of a dark cloak that covered the rest of his outfit that went from his neck down to his ankles. Team I was the short purple-haired boy named Minoru Mineta whose hair resembled grapes. He wore a very simplistic purple shirt and mask with a yellow cape, pants, boots, and gloves. He was paired with Rikida Satu, a very muscular teen with rather full lips and black, spiky hair. His outfit consisted of a yellow bodysuit that had 2 holes for his mouth and hair to come out. He also wore white gloves and boots along with a utility belt around his waist. Team J consisted of Shido Todoroki, a teen with bicolored hair with the right side being white and the left side being red. He had a burn over his left eye and possessed heterochromia with his left eye being green and his right eye being black. He wore a simple white shirt, white pants, white boots, and a gold-colored combat vest. However, on his left side was covered in ice. He was paired up with Denki Kaminari, a teen with blonde hair with black lightning-shaped strokes and small thin eyebrows. He wore a black jacket that was open with white lightning patterns with a white shirt underneath, a belt, black pants with a lightning pattern running down each leg, and a headset. And the first 2 pairs to do combat will be the following. All Might said, as he reached into 2 different boxes, one labeled heroes and the other labeled villains. All Might held up 2 balls. Team E will be the heroes, and Team G will be the villains. This scenario has the villains inside the building first. Then, after 5 minutes, the heroes will be let in, as well. Everyone else will be able to watch what unfolds through the surveillance cameras. All Might then turn to the 2 pairs that were going to duke it out. This will allow young Hagakure and Shuji to get inside the heads of villain kind. This is a practical training exercise, so go all out without fear of injury, though naturally we'll cut it short if things get out of hand. Then the 2 teams went towards the building they would be using. As Izuku walked, he could swear that a pair of eyes was on him, and not the good kind. It seems like it's about to start, Izuku muttered before turning to face his ally. I'll take care of Hagakure. Jiru raised an eyebrow. How so? She asked, as she removed her extended earlobe from the wall. Also, they're on the 4th floor. You can tell where they both are. But you need your earlobes in the walls, don't you? He asked. That will limit your movement, and I believe that Hagakure will take off her shoes and gloves and use her invisibility to her advantage. I can locate her without much difficulty. Then I'm left with Shuji? Izuku nodded. I believe you can take him down. Izuku gave her an upside-down smile with his eyes. Shuji was in the same area as me during the entrance exam, and I saw him on top of a building using his quirk. With those boots of yours, you got this in the bag. Then they were allowed to go into the building. In the same building, the class were watching the monitors of the fight that was about to begin. All Might was also there holding a clipboard ready to grade the students. His eyes were specifically on Izuku, especially with the type of quirk he had. His mind wandered off to the conversation he had with Nedzu, the principal of UA. Midoriya's quirk? Asked Nedzu, as he took a sip of tea. What seems to be the problem? Is it because of your arch-enemy? All Might nodded. Yes, just by seeing his Quirk, I fear that he has connections to him, or even worse, his successor. I understand your concern, Nedza said. However, I doubt that Midoriya is the successor of your arch-nemesis. The small mouse took a sip of his tea. Besides, there are plenty of quirks that share similarities, he pointed out. Multiple elemental quirks such as fire manipulation, water manipulation, and lightning manipulation exist. It isn't too far-fetched to say that his quirk is similar. You're right, Principal. And All Might, we have confirmation about his quirk. The small mouse pulled out a file from in between the couch cushions. Midoriya's quirk is called Chakra. However, it doesn't forcefully take quirks, but rather creates them in a way using a unique energy. I see. Yes, young Midoriya's quirk allows him to manipulate that energy into whatever he wishes. This is why he can use abilities such as fire and water. The energy he calls Chakra fuels his techniques. But what can he exactly do with them? To what extent? The hero asked. We don't know. Not even young Midoriya himself knows the limit. The principal put the file back into the couch. Plus those who know of his quirk are his parents, and the Yaoyorozu family. Yaoyorozu? As in Momo Yaoyorozu, one of the few who got in through official recommendations. The one and the same, the principal smiled. And besides, we are teachers of a school, All Might. It's our job to guide our students down the right path. And in a school of heroes, we have to guide our students properly, but sternly into becoming great heroes, and avoid the path to becoming a villain. The number one hero gave his iconic smile. You're absolutely right, Mr. Principal. Yes, guide them down the path to be a hero, the number one hero thought. He then signaled the beginning of the fight. Izuku and Jiraiya had successfully infiltrated the building. As Izuku activated his Byakugan, he could see every room of the building. I'm going after Hagakure, he said. Good luck, Jiraiya. The punk girl nodded, as they separated. Izuku had gotten to the same floor as Hagakure, as he saw her bone structure sneak around. Positioning himself behind the wall, he covered his arm in earth chakra before he punched the wall with his darkened arm. He heard the invisible girl shriek before she made her way away from him. He didn't need to turn his head to see her, and it seemed she was going to perform a sneak attack. It was time to be deceptive. Damn, I thought Jiraiya said she was here, he said while sounding disappointed. He made sure to not let her into his blind spot, and when she got close, he sprung into action. Using his unique fighting style of gentle fist, he attacked the invisible girl. Does he know where I am? She thought to herself. I can see you plain as day with these eyes of mine, Izuku told her. This is my 8 trigrams. Then the strikes directed at her arms and legs came. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms. After the 16th hit he stopped. I can't move my arms or legs. That was my 8 trigrams, 16 palms, he told her. That technique along with my fighting style, the gentle fist, focuses on paralyzing when attacking near pressure points. Izuku then went to capture Hagakure. However, under his face mask he was quite red. Jiraiya had just split up with Izuku, as she went towards Shuji, who was guarding the bomb. She used her quirk earphone jack, as she heard Shoji's movements, and he definitely heard hers. His quirk dupli arms allowed him to replicate parts of his body such as his mouth, ears, and eyes. However, they were a more enhanced version of the original, hence the gripping strength and more acute hearing. Jiraiya took her earlobes out of the wall and into her boots. He said, I got this in the bag, but that's only if he still has his ears out on his arms. She peeked around the corner, as Shuji stood in front of the bomb. He had his ears out, but then a large crashing sound was heard through the building. Shuji was caught off guard when, as soon as he focused on the sound, Jiraiya came in with the earlobe jacks in her boots, and fired high-pitched sound at Shuji, and due to his acute hearing ears, well, it was painful. He had replaced the ears with fists, and got into a protective stance with the bomb behind him. He couldn't shake the ringing before anything could happen. And that's it, All Might said. The hero team has won. He captured Hagakure? Shuji thought, as he lowered his arms, so he really could see her despite being invisible. Where the punk girl thought on the matter. She looked back to Shuji, who nodded, as they both began to leave after picking up a pair of shoes and gloves. She knew that in a fist fight that Shuji had the upper hand, so she was glad that Midoriya had caught Hagakure before then. All Might turned to the group, as the 4 who participated stood in a line. Well done, you 4. Even if this match was indeed short, it also shows that we cannot give villains any time. He turned to the rest of the class. Now, who would care to explain why the match ended in Team E's favor? Momo was the only one that raised her hand. It was because Hagakure had the misfortune to go up against Izuku, she said. While Hagakure's use of invisibility was a good tactic, it was useless against Izuku due to his eyes being able to see her bone structure, as well through walls. Once Momo said that Izuku could see through walls, Kaminari, and Mineta's head shot up. And what of young Shuji and Jiraiya? The hero asked. In a fist fight, Shuji would have won, but he was also susceptible to any high-pitched sound attacks when using his quirk to locate both Izuku and Jiraiya through sound. This allowed Gyro to throw him off his feet for a while. Good job, All Might gave her the thumbs up. Now, on to the next pair. The day came to a close shortly after the trial of battle concluded. They all watched the battles play out, and the discovery of some of each other's quirks. They spent some free time in the classroom to get to know each other more, as well as more official introductions with one another. Izuku noticed that Kaminari and Mineta tried a little bit too hard to be chummy old friends with him. They were properly slapped down afterwards. Now after the school day ended, Izuku walked with Momo. "Izuku, are you okay?" she asked with concern at seeing the somewhat vacant look on his face. "Oh, me? I'm fine. Are you sure?" "Yep, perfectly fine. That's not the look of I found a new application to my quirk." She narrowed her eyes. "Are you sure you're okay?" "You're getting redder." "I assure you I'm fine." "Have you seen this?" a shadow-like figure asked. "He's become a teacher." "Hey, what do you think would happen once the symbol of peace got snuffed out by villains?" a male with a hand over his face asked. As he asked, a large black humanoid stood in the same room, unmoving, unblinking. It had his brain exposed, and his mouth was similar to a bird's beak. "Let's find out, shall we?" As the students entered the U.A, a lot of news reporters were there, asking students questions mainly about the number one hero All Might. Thankfully Aizawa was there. "The man is off duty now," he said. "You're interfering with our lessons here, so kindly vacate the premises." However, when the reporters tried to get in, the gates forcefully closed, stopping any entry into the school. However, as some of the news reporters were displaying their anger, one within the crowd smirked. "Hope you're rested from yesterday's battle trial," Aizawa said. "I took the liberty of looking at your marks and evaluation." "Bakugo, stop acting like a 7-year-old. You're wasting your own talent," he told Bakugo after what happened during his battle trial. It seemed that Bakugo didn't mix well with Todoroki, and a bit with Kirishima. "I know. Now let's get on with the homeroom notices. I'm sorry to have to spring this on you all, but he didn't finish immediately, probably for tension." "What now? Another pop test?" the class thought. "We need to pick a class president." Finally, something school-like, a majority of the students shouted, and then the floodgates opened. Oh, I want to be class president." "Pick me," shouted Kirishima. "I want to do it too." Gyro raised her hand. "My manifesto. As president, all girls must expose 30 centimeters of thigh," yelled the perverted Mineta. "Oh, you must mean the position that exists for me," Aoyama said, as he sparkled. "That's like a leader position. I'll do it." Me, the pink-haired Ishido practically bounced. "Let me do it," Bakugo said, as steam came out of his nostrils like a raging bull. "Be quiet," a rather loud voice got their attention, as everyone turned to Ida. "This is a task laden with responsibility where you must carry and pull everyone else's weight. Just because you'd like to do it doesn't mean you can. It is a holy office that requires the great esteem and trust of those around you. The only truly worthy leader will emerge from a democratic choice reflecting the will of the people, which is why this must be settled by a vote." Despite his speech, his hand was really high in the air. "He's really being really lofty, ain't he? With that proposal," the louder group shouted. "It's still too early to have developed any trust in each other, as you said, and everyone will just vote for themselves," Kirishima added. "And that's precisely why the person who does manage to earn multiple votes will be the truly appropriate person for the job." "No?" the bespectacled teen asked. "Is that right, sensei?" "As long as you all decide by the deadline, anything's fine," Aizawa said, as he was already in his sleeping bag. And then everyone began to vote. When the voting ended, almost everyone voted for themselves. "Wow, I got 3 votes. Momo glanced at the votes. She knew one of the votes would have been from Izuku, but the other one, she didn't know. "I got 2, Ida asked, as he stared at the blackboard. "I didn't vote for myself." "So then it's President Yayorozu and Vice President Ida," Aizawa said, as he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes. It took some time for Ida to come out of his shock. It was now lunch, as the students got their meals from the cooking hero, Lunch Rush. "So Ida, Vice President, I hope you treat us well," Izuku said. During their breaks, he either hung out with Momo or he hung out with Ida and Uraraka. "I will do my best to meet both of your expectations," the Vice President said. "But I wonder who voted for me?" "Huh, didn't you vote for yourself?" the Gravity Changer asked, as she ate her rice. "I voted for you. I didn't vote for myself. I wonder who voted for me?" "Who knows?" Izuku shrugged. "But anyways, you'll do great," Uraraka encouraged me. "Are you from an upper-crust family?" That was blunt. Izuku watched as Ida revealed his family. "I don't like it when it's brought attention to. But if I must talk about such things, then yes. I'm from a family that's been in heroics for generations," he told the two. "Currently, I am the second son." "Do you know of Turbo Hero Ingenium?" he asked the two. Izuku nodded. "I do. It's the popular hero office in Tokyo that has hired over 65 sidekicks." "You're quite knowledgeable." "But that's correct, and he's my big brother," Ida said with pride, as he pushed his glasses up. "He's a beloved pro-hero who prizes the rules and guides the people, and I aspire to be a hero like him one day. As such, I will do my best, as vice president. Izuku and Uraraka shared a look with one another, and back to Ida, and smiled at him much to his confusion. I think that's the first time you smiled, Ida. Is that true? I smile too, all the time, he defended himself. Nah, you're pretty stoic, the green-black-haired teen said, as he pointed his chopsticks at Ida. All around the clock, you're super serious. Really? Definitely, the brown-haired Uraraka nodded. At least lighten up a little bit. Izuku nodded sagely. I'll try. Then the sirens rang or they blared. Security level 3 has been breached, the voice of the intercom said. Students, please promptly evacuate. What's security level 3? Asked Ida, as everyone else sprang up and began to run for the exit. It means someone's infiltrated the school grounds. This hasn't happened in 3 years, one student said as he ran. Come quickly, all of you. However, the way to the exit was cramped. Ow. Quit pushing. Lay off, or I'll fall. Quit pushing. As expected of the pinnacle of education, their crisis response was swift, Ida praised. Now is not the time, Ida, Izuku said, as the trio were pushed through the crowd. What's this infiltration about? Ida asked, as Izuku activated his Byakugan. With his eyes, he looked around, and saw the press? Ida, he called out to the vice president of his class. Izuku said. The person looked in Izuku's direction. It's the press. The press? He tried to get everyone to calm down, but they were too worried about getting out of there. Where are the teachers? Do they have their hands full dealing with them? Where are the people who can tell all the kids here that everything's fine? We've all fallen into a frenzy of panic. The bespectacled youth's mind went back to when he watched Midoriya take out the gimmick and his older brother in action. Uraraka, make me float. Huh? She was confused at first, as she caused Ida to float. Ida pulled up his pant legs enough to use his quirk, and landed above the exit sign. Everybody calm down. It's okay, he shouted, as he got everyone's attention. It's just the press. There's nothing to panic about. It's okay, you're at Yui. Let's conduct ourselves in the manner of those enrolled at the highest academia. Then the police arrived, as everything calmed down. However, Nedzu along with 2 heroes looked at the gate the press had come in through. Could an ordinary reporter have done something like this? Asked one of the heroes. Some instigated this, Nedzu said. Has some element of evil penetrated the grounds? Perhaps this was intended as a declaration of war. After the fiasco with the voting, and then the press illegally trespassing, the days came and went before the class was now ready for their next lesson. For the foundational skill of heroics we'll study today, it was decided you'll be supervised by a 3-man team comprising me, All Might, and somebody else. Sensei, what'll we be doing? Asked Zero. Be the hero everyone needs, whether it's a flood or any other disaster. He held a similar card to the one All Might showed, but had rescue on it. It's the Trial of Rescue. Trial of Rescue sounds a bit difficult this time around, Kaminari said. Totally, the enthusiastic Ashido agreed with a bit too much excitement. Come on, dumbass, that's what a hero's whole job is. I'm chomping at the bit, Kirishima grinned. If it's a flood, then that environment's my specialty, Azui said, as she let out a happy croak shortly after. Don't get ahead of yourselves, Aizawa told his students, as he opened the wall containing their costumes. As I was saying, this time, it's entirely up to each of you whether or not you wear your costume. Some of your costumes probably aren't adapted to the task at hand. After all, the training area is fairly far away, so we'll get there by bus. That's all, go get prepared. Aizawa had already begun to leave, as everyone got changed into their hero costumes, and were now on their way to the bus. In order to get everyone seated smoothly on the bus, file into 2 lines according to your numbers. Ida blew a whistle. Izuku messed with his long sleeves on his coat before pulling his head up to cover his head. With a quick pulse of his eyes, he saw the inside of the bus, and silently chuckled. When they got on the bus, Ida was looking down at the floor, so it ended up being this kind of bus. There was no point, huh? Ashido asked the depressed Ida. Hey Midoriya, I always say what I think no matter what's on my mind, Azui said out of the blue. Huh, Azui? He looked over towards her. Call me Tsuyu. Your quirk, what is it exactly? She asked, looking him directly in his eyes. Izuku gave her a somewhat nervous eye smile, as he waved his hand. My quirk is pretty simple, he said. Well, not really, I guess. He then fidgeted with his metal arm guards hidden under the long sleeves of his coat above his bicep-long gloves. While he liked his quirk, he didn't know how his fellow peers would feel about it. He knew how Momo felt about it, but not his classmates. They definitely saw his different uses, but he didn't exactly know of all their quirks. He was also kind of shocked that they didn't ask him about it during the trial of battle, but it seems that the other fights seemed to get their mind off it. Who knows what kind of emotions they would have after finding out about it. Maybe he was thinking too hard about this. Momo did say he did think too hard. I'm quite curious about your quirk too, Kirishima smiled. I'm kinda jealous actually, it seems there's a lot you can do with one, and flashily too. He held out his arm, as he hardened, kind of like rock. My hardening power isn't bad for punch-ups, but I hate that it's just not that flashy. Izuku's eyes smiled again. Your quirk is great. He kept his eyes smiling, as Kirishima stopped the use of his quirk. That'll be of great use to a pro hero. Pros, huh? But you know, heroics has a lot about it that's more like a popularity contest too, right? Ashido asked. My naval laser is both flashy and strong enough for the pro level, Aoyama said, as he sparkled. But it'd be bad if your stomach collapsed. As soon as Ashido said that, the sparkling stopped. If we're talking about the double whammy of flashy and strong, you have to mention Todoroki and Bakugo. Ashido returned back to the main conversation. And you're in the same boat. According to the entrance exam and trial of battle, your quirk is also strong and flashy. I thought they forgot. Izuku blinked, as the conversation seemed to go back onto the topic of his quirk. Bakugo's always fuming, so he won't be popular, Ajui said, as Bakugo was fuming for some reason while looking out the window. He turned and snapped towards her. You bitch, I'll be popular too. See? The frog girl pointed at the grenade. It's only been a brief while since our socialization had commenced, and yet already we have been made apodictically cognizant of your personality, redolent, as if it is of a turd getting steamed in a sewer, Kaminari said, which only served to piss off Bakugo more. Huh, he directed his hatred to Kaminari. What the hell kind of vocabulary is that? I'll fucking kill you. What a vulgar conversation. Momo looked on with Uraraka laughing. But they make me laugh. Izuku gave a small chuckle, as Bakugo was like a dog barking at a postman. Don't you think it'll be great to be popular? Asked the invisible girl sitting next to him. Yeah, Izuku scratched his cheek. But I don't think I want to be popular. Why? It doesn't just sit right with me. It's not that I can't handle the spotlight. I probably won't for a while, but it just doesn't feel right. Hagakure tilted her head even though Izuku couldn't tell. We're almost there. Settled down already, Aizawa groaned. Yes, sir. Then the class of 1A arrived at their location, as they exited the bus and entered the large building. Amazing! Is this USJ or something? Some asked, referring to Universal Studios Japan. Flood wrecks, landslides, fires, etc., etc. The other hero Aizawa-sensei mentioned. This is a practical training area I created to simulate all kinds of accidents and disasters, and its name is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. It really is USJ. The hero was a seemingly large man, but that could have been due to his costume, especially seeing as his legs were visibly thin. His costume consisted of a space suit, a helmet, and yellow boots. This was Space Hero 13. Hey, 13, where's All Might? He should be here around this time. Aizawa looked around, and could only see 13. From what I was told, Sensei looks as though he'd been out hero ing while commuting up until his time was up, 13 whispered. Now he's resting in the nap room. That guy's the height of irrational, Aizawa mumbled. The day's not ruined, though we have a backup plan. Oh well, shall we? Before we begin, just one thing or two or three or four, 13 began. They're increasing. I'm certain you're all already quite aware, but my quirk is called Black Hole. No matter what material may get sucked into its vortex, I'm afraid it will turn into dust, 13 said, as he flexed his hand. That quirk is really useful for removing wreckage and saving people injured by disasters, Izuku said, as 13 nodded. Yes it is, however, a power that could also easily be used to kill people, 13 said seriously, and in that way, it's no different from the quirks of everyone here. Naturally, in this society of superhumans, quirks are strictly regulated, and the requirements for their lawful use enforced. We can tell at a glance that is the makeup of this world. That being said, please don't forget that each of you possesses a quirk that can go awry. One wrong step is all it takes to be able to kill others accidentally, the space hero continued. During Mr. Aizawa's physical strength test you learned of your respective powers' true potential, and during All Might's trial of battle I think you took away a true sense of the danger of brandishing those powers against one another. This lesson will serve as a fresh start. Let's get to studying about how to wield our quirks for the sake of human life. Your quirks emphatically do not exist to hurt others. Please leave this exercise having fully understood that your quirks exist to help people. He's so cool. That is all. You have my gratitude for listening so intently and patiently. 13 then bowed. That was awesome. Bravo, bravo. All right, first things first, Aizawa pointed to the training ground before he slowly turned, as his eyes widened just as some sort of portal opened up, as villains poured out. Huddle together, and don't move. Aizawa no, Eraserhead shouted at his students. 13, protect the students. What is that? Is this like training for the entrance exam? Kirishima, as Eraserhead put his goggles on. Don't move, those are villains. Eraserhead, and 13 the shadow figure said. According to the teacher's curriculum we procured yesterday, All Might was supposed to be here, and yet, I knew it. So yesterday the doing of your Lotus Eraserhead got ready to battle. Where he went through all this trouble, and rustled up so many of us to bring along. You can't tell me All Might the symbol of peace isn't here. The maybe teen with the multiple hands on his body said. Then in a creepy voice he said, I wonder if he'll show up if we kill the kids? Eraserhead jumped over the railing as soon as he heard his intentions. He wouldn't allow that to happen. The villains? Get out of here, one of the students shouted. What kind of numbskull could think honest to God villains would be able to just waltz into the hero home base? Another one also added. Sensei, what about the intruder alarm sensors? Momo asked. Of course we have some set up, but is this the only part of campus they've infiltrated? Or are they attacking all the others too? Todoroki asked. Then that just means they must have one amongst their number who has a quirk that can do that. An isolated space away from the school building at a time when there's a class scheduled may seem out of the question, but they must have some solid objective. This isn't an ambush without some carefully planned scheme behind it. 13. Do the evacuation procedure, and try calling the school, Eraserhead, as he landed at the stairs kicking one of the villains away with ease. These villains know how to get around the sensors. There's a chance there's an electrowave type guy who'll try interfering. So Kaminari, try contacting you with your quirk too. He took out another 2. Will Sensei be alright? There are a lot of them. Ishida looked on. There's definitely too many of them. Mineta panicked. A hero always has more than one trick up their sleeves, Aizawa said before he jumped again, but this time, into the majority of the villains. Wasn't there supposed to be only 13? And All Might? One of the villains asked. Who the hell's that? Buggered if I know, but he's seriously hurtling towards the majority of us by himself. What a dumb shit, the third said, as he used his quirk, but nothing happened. Huh, it won't shoot. Then the 3 were easily taken out by Aizawa. You bunch of morons. You can tell just by looking that's the quirk that erases other quirks. Eraserhead, another villain said. It erases quirks? Hee. A large 4-armed rock-like masked villain laughed. Can you even erase mutant shapes like us? Nope, no can do, the hero said, as he punched the villain in the face. It only works on emitter and transformation class quirks. Even so, statistically, guys like you are stronger at close quarters combat where you can really excel, he said, as he ducked another villain's fist, as he pulled his scarf, and pulled the mutant villain into 3 other villains. Which is why I have devised the countermeasure, he said, as he faced the rest. His hand-to-hand combat skills, too, are commendable. Furthermore, we cannot be just whose quirks he's erased, since his line of sight is hidden by those goggles, the messy gray-haired villain said. That is why even a mass allied against him is tasting defeat. Now I see. God, pro-heroes are such a pain. If we were just any rabble, we wouldn't stand a chance. Meanwhile, as Aizawa was fending off the villains, 13 was evacuating the students. However, it wasn't that easy. I'm afraid I can't allow that, the villain made of black mist said, as he appeared before the hero and students. Shit! In the blink of an eye, it seems he's the one who poses the biggest threat here, Eraserhead thought, as he saw the villain already in front of 13, and the students. Greetings, we are the Villain Alliance, the mist villain greeted. I apologize for the presumption, but we took it upon ourselves to enter Yui Academy, the base of heroes, in order to engage with Mr. All Might, the symbol of peace. We were wondering if we might be allowed the opportunity to extinguish him. You see, he said. Was All Might not meant to be in attendance at this juncture? Perchance, has something been altered? Well, setting that aside, this is my role. As he said that, Bakugo and Kirishima attacked the mist villain with their quirks. Bet you didn't think we'd be able to do you in before you got the chance. Kirishima grinned, as the villain seemed unaffected. That was quite perilous, the villain said, to be expected. Though you may be mere students, you are also the hero world's golden eggs. It's no use, just run, 13 shouted. Run, you too. He then prepared to use his quirk. 13 held up his hand, but it was too late, as the villain's body surrounded the group. You will be scattered, the villain said, as his mist body captured some of the students, and tortured, and slain. As soon as Izuku was engulfed in the shadowy fog, he was released just as fast. It didn't take long to realize that he was falling, and falling fast. Izuku was falling. Warping. His quirk is warping, he thought, as he looked below him. The flood zone? At least it was better than falling onto solid ground and breaking your legs. Clasping his hands together, he brought forth a powerful gale that was enough to push him closer to the boat that was in the flood zone. Izuku pointed his legs forward, as he prepared to enter the water. While he was closer to the boat, the gale wasn't strong enough to get him there. Seeing as he had little time to prepare, he channeled his chakra into his legs, more so his feet, for when he entered the water. I hope this works, he muttered before a loud splash of water occurred once he hit the water's surface. Ha! It worked! Standing on the water's surface was Izuku himself, as if he was walking on water. Last time I tried this, I kept falling into the water due to uneven levels. He looked back towards the stairs. Now is not the time to be thinking of my quirk. He stopped, as he spotted a shark-like fin coming towards him. Villains? In the water too? He was taken out of his thoughts, as a long tongue wrapped around his body. Midoriya. Izuku was then pulled from the water, and onto the ship where Tsuyu climbed up, as she threw Mineta onto the boat. Thank you, Ajiri. Izuku gave a nice smile, as she responded the same way she responded on the bus. Call me Tsuyu, and boy, are we in a pickle. Thanks to Tsuyu Ajiri's quirk, frog form granted her frog-related abilities such as her leaping ability, wall clinging, fast swimming, and of course her long tongue. Did it get hot in here? And many other frog-like abilities that she had yet to show. Well, there goes the curriculum, Izuku muttered. It seems that yesterday's break-in by the media must have been a ploy to obtain information. Todoroki was right. They were watching for an opportunity to swoop in, and now their preparations are complete. But there's no way they'd kill All Might, Mineta said, as he recovered. Once All Might arrives, he'll go like pow, and bam, and kablooey. Mineta must have figured out some way to kill him. Tsuyu turned to face him. Otherwise it'd be absurd if they went through all this trouble just to get flattened. No, and it's not exactly beneath those bastards. They told us they'd torture us to death, remember? Will we really be able to hold out until All Might arrives? If he does come, will he be alright? Tsuyu continued before Mineta turned to Izuku. Midoriya, he said before both him, and Tsuyu saw the eye smile on the only visible part of his face. Guys, he said slowly, no one's invincible. That goes for All Might too. But we should worry about ourselves. All Might can handle himself. He isn't the #1 hero for nothing, right? The eye smile he gave the two seemed to raise their morale, more specifically Mineta. Tsuyu, you want to know if we can hold out? He asked, getting a slow nod, as the shark man in the water surrounding the boat shouted. Well, Tsuyu, I don't plan on any of us dying here. The two watched, as he walked to the side of the boat. I'll clear this obstacle. He turned back to the two with his face mask lowered. Leave it to me, he gave them a smile. He then jumped the side of the ship, as he gathered chakra. What's that kid doing? Asked one of the villains. Who cares? The shark one said. Izuku released a small stream of flames at the villains from his mouth, forcing the villains to dive underwater. Once the flames were gone, they came back up. Hey kid, are you an Edie? The villain stopped, as he saw Izuku standing on top of the water with a smirk. Suddenly, the waves started to move like crazy, and before they knew it, a giant, powerful eastern dragon made of water rose into the air before it came down at the villains. The villains let out a painful groan, as they were knocked around by the water dragon. Tsuyu, he shouted out, as the frog girl's tongue wrapped around him. I haven't even tried this yet, but here it goes. He held out his palm, as Tsuyu leapt, as he was taken off the water's surface. Here goes nothing, he muttered. Sorry Kaminari, but you're not the only lightning guy here if this works. As he flew through the air, a small wave of electricity shot from his hands, shocking the water, and the villains within. Even though that was a small amount, I think I overdid it, Izuku thought, as he saw one of the fried villains curse at him. Damn brat. They're actually pretty sturdy, he thought with wide eyes. They must have taken precaution in case of an electric quirk user, so they used someone who used an electric absorption quirk. Maybe the quirk allowed one to place the shock absorption onto others to reduce the effects? However, despite the precaution, they didn't know someone like Tsuyu, whose quirk strives in the water, would appear here. He thought. So they took certain precautions to defend themselves, but don't know our quirks. Meanwhile, the teen with the hands all over his body, mainly his face, looked towards the side of the water dragon where it appeared briefly. He hummed to himself. The leading villain turned to one of his minions who fell onto the ground. The minion looked directly at the leader of this attack. I'm sorry, he apologized, but someone used an electric-based quirk at the water zone. Our guys are still breathing. However, the electric absorption they absorbed was too much for them to contain, so it went back to me. The leading villain had already lost interest. As he continued, the minion collapsed to the floor. My electrical absorption gets weaker when I place a temporary barrier on a person. However, the more I use it, the weaker the barrier becomes for others. His eyes started to slowly close, as he glanced at the other villains fighting Eraserhead. But once they are hit, and their barrier is overloaded, then all the electric damage they would have received redirects to me, and the amount the barrier absorbed reflects back on those with the barrier. With that, the villain collapsed. TCH, how annoying, the masked villain mumbled. The hell are you wasting time with that stupid monologue? We are just here to kill the symbol of peace, that is all that matters. It doesn't matter how many bodies it takes. He walked over the minion's unconscious body. You had a semi-decent quirk, too bad that it affects you when the barriers for others get overloaded. But that still means we have those in the water zone active with some damage. God damn it, one of the fried villains said, as they were all captured with what seemed to be purple grapes from the top of Mineta's head. At least that guy's quirk saved us from being zapped alive, another said. Yeah, but now we are trapped here, a third shouted. That means he'll shock us again if he wants to, and we can't escape. But the quirk. Shut up about the quirk, the shark-like one said. The guy who used it won't be able to use it on us again. Our barriers only absorbed a small amount, and shocked us due to the overload. The main amount that should have fried us, transferred to the quirk holder. It's a miracle we are alive. However, while they were talking, interesting, very interesting. So it was an electrical absorbing quirk, Izuku muttered before letting go of the breath he didn't know he was holding. I'm glad I didn't accidentally kill them. I don't think I'd be able to take that, but it seems that the other guy took it hard. It was a good thing that the villains took some precautions for their plan, otherwise they might have suffered more than just burns. Lightning, when it attacked a body of water like a pool, could either do nothing, leave horrifying burns, or death itself. The precaution quirk just increased the odds of favoring the burns rather than death. Izuku only put a small amount of chakra, or now lightning chakra, into his palms. He didn't know what would have happened, but it seems that thanks to the villains' plans, it resulted in no deaths for the villains. He then wondered about the lightning chakra itself. Did it respond to his will to only shock and capture the villains? Or was it going to shock them regardless, death or not? He had no idea, but now wasn't the time to reflect on such things. There were villains attacking. Meanwhile, at the same time the villains attacked, All Might was sitting in a lounge. It won't connect to 13 or Aizawa, he muttered. Unlike before, All Might wasn't buff, as he usually was in the eyes of the public. He was wearing a gold-colored suit, and his hairstyle was much different. He was an overly skinny man with angular features, long limbs, and neck. His hair was spiky, disheveled, with 2 bangs framing the sides of his face opposed to the hairstyle in his hero form. He even only had eyebrows in his hero form. Whatever the reason is, I suppose I'll relinquish my post as a teacher after work hours are over. I did a very foolish thing. I'll go when school's ending, but what should I tell them all? I think I've got about 10 minutes left in me, he said, as he suddenly buffed up. Yes, I will be there. Hold your horses, Nedza said, as he opened the door. Mr. Principal. Yes, it's me, the guy you can't quite make out if he's a mouse, a dog or a bear, and of course a proud principal, he said as he walked in. I see your fur is very neat today, as well. It's keratin. Humans just can't achieve this level of luster. Nedza then pulled out a tablet. Putting that aside for now, look at this, you. Even after your arrival, there are still droves of evildoers in this town, but that you'd rush off reflexively to wherever you hear there's danger is so like you. You really haven't changed at all from the old days. There are the effects of your wounds and complications. The limit of your heroics. You are still looking for a worthy heir. As long as society at large remains unenlightened about your predicaments, then the only place you can continue is here, at the place I recommended, as a teacher. Nedza pointed at the hero who was back to his true form. Isn't it alright if you rest your tuchus here a bit more from now on? Actually, you could have even attended today's lesson, if only for a short while. No? Of course you can take or leave my suggestions, but you did choose to undertake the position, the principal said, as he crawled up onto the couch. As such, I'd be elated if you would continue to prioritize exercising your talents in the field of education. There are already dozens, and dozens of heroes patrolling this city, after all. It's just, as you say, principal, and that's why I've already made preparations to head to USJ myself, All Might said, as Nedza began to pour tea. Well, if you go now, you'll only be putting yourself in a bind. You'd have to return soon thereafter anyway, or am I mistaken? Why don't you just stay here, and I'll ply you with my humble educational theories while you take in some sustenance, the super-intelligent animal said before turning to All Might. And you still need to find a successor too before it's too late. I know, All Might nodded. I do have a person in mind, but I want to have a look at some others before I make my choice. A serious look appeared in his eyes. I need to know that I am giving my power to the right person. They need to be the next symbol of peace after me. I know that's why I'm bringing it up. The mouse dog bear handed All Might a cup of tea. Now let's begin on the inherent vulnerabilities and burdens of navigating the line between hero and instructor. Is everybody still here? Can you confirm? Shouted Ida. We're scattered and in disarray, but we're all still within park limits, Shuji said, as Ida couldn't get a response. He has the ability to attack people with a warp in space, and he can become intangible, too. Talk about hard to handle, Ciro said, as the mist villain was still there. Class Vice President. The space hero got the attention of Ada. I entrust this to you. Please sash, as fast as you can back to school, and relay the following. Somehow, the alarms never triggered, and our phones have lost reception. Our alarms operate by infrared rays in spite of Isa Eraserhead canceling quirks down below. Their continued deactivation is still, likely, the work of someone with an interfering quirk who wasted no time hiding him, or herself. So in order to smoke out that person, you must bolt, and inform the school of our situation. But it would be a disgrace to the class if their president were to join a band. Ida started before being cut off. He said go, emergency exit, Sata said, as he and Ciro stood in front of Ida, ready to protect him if the villain came towards him. You can alert the outside of what's going on. There's gotta be a reason they made sure to cause their trouble here. And that means they won't chase you after you make it out, Zero added. Use those legs of your kick free of that black mist. Please use your quirk to save others, 13 said. It's just like that time in the lunchroom. Uraraka gave Ida a confident smile. Besides, we can back them up, as support like nobody's business. Promise, she said, as Ishido nodded. You're our best hope, Vice President. I may or may not be able to stop him, the mist villain said. But still, I am surprised there are still simpletons among us who would spout off their plans while in the company of their enemies. Isn't it obvious? We let you hear us because it's not a problem if you know, 13 said, as he held his finger up, as its glove opened, as the hero began to use his quirk. We did it, Izuku said, as Tsuyu's tongue let go of Izuku. I can believe we survived, Mineta painted after throwing his head grapes into the flood zone, catching the villains with the help of Izuku's wind chakra. I'm quite surprised they weren't shocked to death with your quirk. Tsuyu was brought up. I'll explain later, but they apparently had a quirk user to reduce electric-type abilities on the group in the flood zone. However, it backfired due to an overload which harmed them, and the user, he said. Actually, I just realized I gave a summary of why. Never mind then. So, Midoriya, what exactly is your quirk? The frog girl asked. Basically, my quirk allows me to control the elements, 5 to be exact, he revealed. Fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning. Those 5 elements, mainly what you can see in nature. However, I can channel what seems to be non-elemental chakra, as well, but the thing is, I'm not sure if that's all I can do. He turned to her, showing his eyes, as he fixed up his face mask and hood. My eyes are also a part of chakra, and I think Momo also explained it to you during the review of my fight against Hagakure. That's quite a quirk, Midoriya, Tsuyu blinked. Now we have cleared our first hurdle. We should decide on what to do next. Our first priority is calling for help. The green-clad hero was brought up. Then, the trio spied Aizawa at the plaza. Oh yeah, Aizawa-sensei is at the plaza holding back that giant group of villains. Tsuyu turned her head to Izuku. There's too many of them. I know what Izuku said, as his eyes lowered. Even though sensei is handling it fine, he is sure to fall sooner or later. Wait, you're not saying Mineta let his sentence trail off, as Izuku shook his head. I'm not saying that we should head straight there, but rather relieve some of sensei's burden for him, he said. I can do that due to my long range. You two should sneak out of here. Izuku felt something hit him on the head. It turned out to be Tsuyu's tongue. Don't be stupid, Midoriya-chan, Tsuyu scolded. We're not leaving you behind. Izuku's eyes smiled at her. Thanks, Tsuyu. I hope the others are alright, he thought, as he looked over to the overzones and then back to Tsuyu and Mineta. Okay, you two be ready just in case. I have a bad feeling about this. The class was scattered around the USJ in different zones. Izuku, Tsuyu, and Mineta had survived and won their battle at the flood zone. The remaining scattered students were in the remaining 5 zones: the ruins zone, the landslide zone, the mountain zone, the conflagration zone, and the downpour storm zone. Aizawa was fighting the majority of the villains at the central plaza, with 13 fighting the mist villain with the remaining non-scattered students. Uraraka, Shuji, Ida, Satu, Siro, and Ishido remained with 13. In the ruins zone, Kaminari ducked under a villain's punch. Damn, that was close. Kaminari, are you okay? Ojiro asked, as he used his tail to whack a villain away through a window. Who the fuck are these guys anyway? The blonde said. Let's focus on surviving first. Good plan. Ojiro then jumped and slammed his tail into another villain. Your quirk can be used to shock others, right? Yeah? Kaminari looked confused, as Ojiro sent him an apologetic look. Sorry, Kaminari. With that, Kaminari was sent into a villain and shocked him. Oh, I get it, Kaminari said, as a light bulb appeared over his head. In the mountain zone was Todoroki, who currently froze all the villains in sight. Scatter and kill us, huh? He asked. Sorry to say it, but to me it looks like you're just a load of mooks who don't know their quirks from their rear ends. That fucker. The second I can move again, one villain said, as he tried to get free of the ice. Is he really just a kid? Ow, a second villain said. At first blush, I'd say they thought they could overwhelm even elites with sheer numbers, and they thought they could just pop open the lid and use us as pawns. What a motley crew of goons, the ice user thought. From the look of things, the number of actual threats here caps at 4 people, maybe 5. Todoroki then turned his head to one of the villains. At this rate you guys will gradually succumb to death by necrosis, but since I'm aiming to become a hero, I want to avoid doing horrifying shit like that, as much as I can. What's the basis of your plan to kill All Might? TCH. Like the hell we'll tell you, Todoroki sighed, as he turned his head. Are you okay, Kuda? The shy Kuda nodded. Yes, I'm fine. You may want to look away. In the landslide zone were Tokoimi and Kirishima fending off the villains with their quirks. Kirishima used his hardened state to easily knock out the villains with some serious punches, while Tokoimi used his quirk called Dark Shadow, which created a shadow-like monster with an appearance similar to Tokoyami himself. The shadow being smacked away a villain into Kirishima, who punched the villain away. "Good job, Tokoyami," shouted Kirishima, who landed a headbutt on another villain. "You too," the bird-headed teen said, as his shadow was giving the other teen a thumbs up. In the conflagration zone was the short-tempered Bakugo. He blasted away a villain with his quirk with ease. Fucking hell, he blasted yet another away. Then he saw a laser knock away a villain in the distance. It seems Oyama was here also. Bakugo grabbed the face of a villain behind him, and used his explosive quirk to take out the villain. He was definitely going to give these villains a piece of his mind. In the downpour storm zone were Momo and Jiru. Here, Jiru. Momo threw Jiru a weapon, as the two defended themselves from the villains. Her earphone jacks went, and plugged into her boots before shooting a wave of sound at the villains. "Gah, my ears!" the villains shouted, as Momo kneeled down. "Protect me for a few seconds." Jiru was given the weapon Momo was using, as she did her best to fend off the villains. However, she lost one of the weapons to a villain with a quirk that allowed him to turn his arms into blades. "Nice try, but you die here today," the villain said, as he threw his arm down. However, before anything happened, he fell down onto his face, as a floating club hit him from behind. "Hagakure?" asked Jiru with relief, as the invisible girl spoke up. "Yep, that's me." "Thank you too," Momo said, as she was now holding a Gatling gun with a short-sleeved red shirt over top of her destroyed outfit. "That's some serious firepower." The two thought Momo fired the gun. However, instead of bullets, they were similar to nets that opened neither on contact or before contact. "It seems we'll be okay." 23 seconds, the villain with the hand on his face said. "You're the favorite?" Aizawa said, as the villain grabbed the scarf Aizawa threw. 24 seconds, 20 seconds, TCH. The hero ducked under a villain, and headed directly towards the hand villain. 17 seconds, Eraserhead slammed his elbow into the gut of the main villain. "We keep jumping around so it's hard to tell, but there are moments your hair falls over your eyes," the leader said. "It's whenever you complete one action, and the interval is getting shorter and shorter." It was then Aizawa saw that his elbow was caught, and his elbow was seemingly disintegrating away slowly. "Don't bite off more than you can chew, Eraserhead," the villain said creepily, as said hero punched him with his other free hand. "My elbow is broken," he thought, as he jumped away, and dodged two more villains. "That quirk of yours, isn't it unsuited to fighting masses for long periods? Isn't this far removed from your typical work? Isn't your actual specialty short-length sneak attacks?" The villain asked question after question. "So was the reason you jumped into an open battle like this to give your students some measure of peace of mind? You're so cool you are. Oh, by the way, hero." Aizawa's head turned, as he saw the next villain. "I'm not the favorite here." It was that large humanoid with the exposed brain, and he was right behind him. 13. As expected of a hero whose efforts are in mere disaster relief, the mist villain said. "Sensei," the students shouted, "your battle experience is far lower than the normal heroes. You rendered yourself into dust by your own power." The back of 13 had crumbled to dust due to his black hole quirk, as the warping quite warped the black hole behind 13. "A warp gate! I'm done," he thought. "Ida, he told you to run," Sada shouted. "Shit," said the student shouted, as he began to sprint towards the main buildings. "Oh, scattered children, if you called the teachers to your aid, I fear that would cause a spot of concern for us," the villain said, as he opened a warp gate in front of Ida. Then suddenly, Shuji used his arms to cover the warp gate. "Go," he shouted. "Quickly! Everybody, please wait for me." Izuku, Tsuyu, and Minato were greeted to a sight of the exposed brain villain, easily pinning Aizawa to the ground. "Tell the symbol of peace he's wanted by an artificial human, Numu." "Artificial humans?" the green-haired teen mumbled. A bad feeling went down his spine, and shook him to the core. "Shit!" Ida ran towards the door. "How rude of you! I won't let you get out." "Uraraka?" Ashido asked, as she tended to 13. "Everyone, look at that!" she shouted, as she ran towards the villain, pointing out the armor on the villain. "Don't get cocky, for eyes. Vanish!" Uraraka shouted, as she touched the villain, and made him float upwards into the air. "I dunno why it's there, but if he's got it on, then wouldn't that mean he's got a true body in there somewhere? So run, Ida!" Sero then shot the tape from his elbow, and attached it to the armor on the villain. "Keep going, Ida!" Ida had made it out of the building, as the mist villain just looked on in the air. "If he calls for reinforcements, then this is game over. You can erase quirks, a respectable ability, but there's nothing to it in the end," the leader said, as Numa pulled the arm of the hero back, increasing the pain. "After all, when faced with overwhelming might, you might, as well, be quirkless in that situation," he shouted out, as the pain increased. "He's snapping me like a twig. Looking at any part of his body should have been enough to erase his quirk. In other words, this is his base power? He's damn near Almighty's level unless he's like Midoriya." Numu raised the hero's head before slamming it into the ground, leaving a nice small crater. This is too much, Midoriya, you gotta be having second thoughts now, right? Mineta asked. Ribbit. Then the mist villain appeared beside the leader, Tamura Shigaraki. Kurojiri. Shigaraki turned his head slightly. Then that means 13 is dead? I have incapacitated him, Kurojiri said. However, I'm afraid the students whom I could not scatter impeded me, and he was therefore able to escape with his life. Shigaraki was now looking directly at him. Huh? He asked. Ha, Kurojiri, if you can't be a proper warp gate, then our plans crumble. There's no doubt that if they throw dozens of pros at us, we can't win. It's game over. Then it is game over for now. Shall we hop back? He asked. Guys, we got to go now, Izuku harshly whispered. But Aizawa-sensei. Now, he said. Tsuyu, I can easily move through the water on my own. Take my neta now. Right, but you're coming with us. Her tongue came out. No lone wolf or heroic sacrifices. Izuku nodded. I don't plan on taking on something I can't win against. As they began to move, Shigaraki turned to face the trio. Actually, before that, why don't we take this opportunity to take the symbol of peace's pride down a notch? He said, as he was now over at the flood zone, after Izuku knocked Tsuyu and Mineta into the wave with water chakra that swept them away. What was that? Izuku thought, as he saw the disintegration of Tsuyu's head. He was already out of the water, as his skin on his hand turned darker. Those white eyes, they're red now, Shigaraki thought, as his eyes went down to the hero in training's fingers turned darker. And his fingers are darker? Numa, he called out, as Izuku landed the punch on Numu. Izuku looked up at Numu, who stared emotionlessly at him, unaware of the condition of his eyes. Nice punch there, Shigaraki clapped, as he turned his attention back to Tsuyu, and Mineta with Tsuyu ready to bring Izuku with him with her tongue. Izuku pulled his face mask and released a stream of fire towards the leader villain. Shigaraki jumped back, as a wall of flames passed by him, as he turned back to Izuku. Changing of the eyes, body parts turning darker, and breathing flames, Shigaraki's eyes narrowed before widening. Could he also be an artificial human too? Or does he have a quirk like Sensei? Numu, capture, he commanded, as the Numu went to capture the team. Shit, he chanted in his mind. He needed to do something to get away. So he released the water chakra from his mouth. The water released from his mouth had easily cut through the creature's skin, and cut off the arm with higher pressure than normal. So you were the one who made that water dragon, Shigaraki mused. Izuku's red eyes started to fade, as Otomo spun. Now white eyes stared emotionlessly at the villain's loss of an arm. I cut off his arm. Is this the first time you used your quirk with the intention to take a life? Shigaraki chuckled. Izuku was lost in his horrified mind, as Nimu's arm regrew before grabbing Izuku's head, and slamming it into the ground with a large crater. Izuku was pinned to the ground, as Nimu raised his hand into the air. Knock him out, Nimu. Don't kill him, the villain ordered. I need a sensei for this one. Nimu's raised fist suddenly came crashing down, but stopped an inch over the bloody face of the student, as the doors blew open. Have no fear, a loud and powerful booming voice declared, for I am here. The symbol of peace entered the USJ. Ah, it seems we got an extra continue, Shigaraki mused. Numu, go back to the previous objective. I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach, so I cut the principal's long story short, and decided to come check on you all, the hero said, as he walked closer, and past the students standing with their team. I happened upon young Ida on my way here. Thanks to him, I heard the gist of what happened. And now you've really made me angry, seeing just how frightened you made all the kids, seeing how desperately my pupils were giving it their all. However, it swells my chest with pride. He then glanced over at where Aizawa and Izuku were. However, you dared to not only harm 2 colleagues of mine, but you also harmed one of my students, and for that, I shall not forgive you. We were waiting for you, hero, Shigaraki chuckled. Or should I say, you hero trash. In what seemed to be less than a second, he had already knocked out the villains near the stairs, and had grabbed Aizawa. I apologize, Aizawa, his face and arm. He then disappeared a second time, as he grabbed Mineta, Tsuyu, and Izuku. He looked down at Izuku, who was in a similar state to Aizawa. They had the intention to kill the students. He's bleeding pretty badly, he thought, as he turned back to Tsuyu and Mineta. Head towards the entrance, you two. I have to leave Aizawa and young Midoriya with the both of you. It's no good, Father, Shigaraki said, as he picked up the hand that covered his face, and put it back on. He took the opportunity to hit you while he was saying them, ha ha ha. They call it the state's legitimate monopoly of violence. He really is quite fast. How my eyes couldn't follow him. And yet, he wasn't as fast as I expected. Could it be that our intel was true after all? About how you're weakening, he said with a strange gleam in his eye. Midoriya, so you noticed Izuku struggling to get up, barely hanging on. Don't push yourself. Sorry, he apologized. But you two need to carry Aizawa. I can make my way there by myself. You can barely stand. Izuku struggled to stand on both of his feet before falling to the ground. Come on, Midoriya-chan. Carolina smash, All Might shouted, as he did a cross chop on the Numu which seemingly did nothing. I can't believe it, my blows aren't working at all. Look no further than the beast's amazing shock absorption, Shigaraki said with glee. It'd be more effective if you slowly and steadily scooped out his guts, though him letting you do that is a different story. Thanks for telling me. If that's all it takes, then don't worry, it'll be a cinch. All Might spun around behind the Numu and landed a German suplex on the Numu which caused a large cloud of smoke to appear. Since when did backdrop slams become so explosive? Asked Mineta, as they made their way to the entrance, with Aizawa and Izuku, who struggled to stay conscious and make his way to the entrance. All Might really is a world away from us, he said in shock. However, Tsuyu added her 2 cents in. Though when it comes to teaching, he's still a beginner who needs to read off of cue cards, she said. Awesome, those bastards were just underestimating All Might from the get-go, Sada shouted with a large grin. Look, Midoriya, Azuri, Mineta, and Aizawa-sensei are there too, Uraraka pointed. Ashido gasped as she saw Izuku and Aizawa-sensei, and Midoriya are badly injured. Go All Might, Mineta shouted. Aim for the crotch. Maybe we were overthinking the situation. His strength is dumbfounding, Tsuyu added. G.U.H. All Might grunted with a trail of blood coming from his mouth. So that's what you were thinking? Numu was gripping the hero's sides as he came up from the ground from Kurogiri's warped quirk. You plan to drive him deep into the concrete and seal his movements, right? Asked the villain with the way to many hands. But you wouldn't have been able to seal him for long anyway. Numu is the same power level as you. Isn't it great, Kurogiri? He handed us the perfect chance on a silver platter. Gah, the hero grinned out, as Numu's fingers clawed deeper in. This was your first mistake. You'd better be ready for some pain. I certainly do have blood and organs inside of me, so it will be a touch displeasurable, but I'll gladly endure it if it's handed out by a man of your stature, Kurogiri said. It was Numu's duty to restrain your dizzying speed so that I could open a gate while you were in that prone state. It is now my duty to eviscerate you. Kurogiri went to move, as he was suddenly blasted by Bakugu's quirk, as he then pinned down the mist villain. At the same time, half of Numu's side was frozen solid. I heard about you bastards' plan, Todoroki said, as he walked forward, and about each of your roles in your scheme to kill All Might. I know it all. Kirishima went to attack Shigaraki, and dodged the attack. Shit, I missed. He frowned at missing the perfect chance to take the villain out. No funny business out of you, you shadow-ass mogling. The ash-blonde Bakugu grinned evilly. The symbol of peace won't go down as easily as you clowns do, Todoroki coolly said. A freeze attack, All Might noted, as he looked at young Todoroki. He has so much precision he was able to freeze him without catching me in it. Thank you, my boy. Now his grip has slackened. All Might has easily slipped out of the villain's grip. You pinned down our revolving door well, now this is quite the pinch. Shigaraki looked over towards Bakugu and Kurogiri. Just as I thought, this prick was never all that sharp. Bakugu spoke arrogantly like normal. That bit on your body you used to get all misty and warp gatey just got sealed. Motherfucker, you're gonna tell me you don't use that warp gate to hide your true body? Izuku's eyes widened as he stumbled weakly over, as fast as he could. Midoriya-chan? The frog girl asked, as he waved for them to keep going. I got to warn them. If the shadow mist were your true form, and you had no actual body, then why would you have called any attack dangerous? The explosive teen asked. Ugh, don't you move. The second you move so much as a twitch, I'll load you with a nice little explosion right here, right now. Not a very heroic line there. Buddy Kirishima looked towards Bakugu. It honestly sounded like a villain. We've been cornered, and what's more, you're nearly unscathed. Man, I have to hand it to the kids these days. At this rate the villain alliance will be a laughingstock. Shigaraki cursed under his breath. Todoroki, Izuku shouted, as he got much closer, enough for them to hear him. Freeze his whole body, not the side. He took a deep breath before shouting out, he can regenerate lost limbs. All their eyes widened, as Numu broke free of the ice, as his right side including his arm and leg shattered into small shards of ice. Stand back, all of you, All Might shouted, as Numu began to regenerate. What the? I thought his quirk was shock absorption. I never said that was the full extent of his abilities. As you can see, he's also got super regeneration. Shigaraki smirked. Numu is a human sandbag artificially created to the height of physical fitness in order to withstand your 100%. Numu disappeared in a burst of speed, as he went to punch Bakugu off of Kurogiri, and sent an impressive wave of shock or wind due to the punch. However, Bakugu was unharmed thanks to All Might and his impressive speed. It turned out that it wasn't just an impressive shockwave or wind, but actually All Might who blocked the attack with his arms and was sent back a fair amount. Do you know not mercy? All Might asked. However, his mind briefly went on to other matters which were quickly suppressed for later. We had no choice. We had to save our ally, didn't we? asked Shigaraki. And not long ago one of your kids over there, which one? The bloody, green one. He tried to attack me with all his might, you know. But I am curious where you obtained one? If he's what I think he could be? He asked. Anyways, now listen here, All Might. I'm very ticked off. We're all categorized as either heroes or villains, but at the end of the day violence is violence. And who gets to decide right and wrong? Society does. The symbol of peace? Give me a break. You're nothing more than a bludgeon of oppression yourself. Violence only breeds more violence. And once we kill you, that'll be made known to the world. You're mad. All Might told the villain, as he got into a fighting stance. You ought to keep your antisocial viewpoints to yourself. Besides, be straight with me. You just want to get in your kicks. You saw through me so quickly, Shigaraki mumbled. It's 3 versus 4. Todoroki looked over at Kirishima and Bakugo. These guys are outrageous, but if we give All Might support, then we'll send them packing no problem. The redhead hardened his arms. No, please escape, All Might shouted at the teens. But if I hadn't come to support you earlier it'd have been bad, Todoroki said, as he flexed his wrist. Right you are, Todoroki my boy, thanks a ton, but now I'll be okay. All you need to do is watch a pro show you how it's done. Nomu, Kurojairi, do your thing. Shigaraki turned his attention to the kids. I'll take care of the kids, especially the interesting ones. Izuku painted, as he fell to the ground, breathing heavily, as Shigaraki ran forward. Let's clear the game, and return victorious. He's coming, brace yourselves, Kirishima shouted. All Might then vanished, as his fist connected with Numa's fist. I told you before he had shock absorption, Shigaraki said after he was blown away. All Might and Numa began trading blow for blow at high speeds. It was as if they were fighting with stands. I can't get any nearer, Kurojairi said, as he was blown back to Shigaraki. It's shock absorption, not shock nullification. That means it must have a limit, All Might shouted. He was made to withstand my 100%. In that case I'll just give it more than 100%. A hero is someone who smashes through every obstacle life puts his way. Do you know what I mean, villain? The students watched, as All Might put more than 100% into what seemed to be his final attack. He landed a punch on Numa's guy, as he shouted, Plus Ultra! He then sent the Numa flying, so far into the air it smashed through the dome roof of the USJ, and far away into the sky, even blowing away some clouds. What is this, a comic book? Kirishima asked. It looked like he pounded the shock absorption out of him. So this is the top, Todoroki thought, as a small bead of sweat rolled down his forehead. This is the world of the pros, Bakugo thought with wide eyes. I have really gotten weaker. In my heyday it'd have taken 5 good punches, tops. Today I threw more than 300 of them, he said before looking towards the villain. Now them villains, we both want to put an end to this dance of ours quickly, don't we? You use cheats, Shigaraki seethed. You've gotten weaker? You lie. We're totally overpowered. How dare you lay a hand on my Numa? You use cheats. There's no way you're any weaker now. Did he lie to me? What's the matter? Where did your bravado go? All Might asked. What happened to clearing the game? Try it if you can. That's All Might for you. It looks like we're not even players anymore, Todoroki said. Here you go, Midoriya, Kirishima said, as he put Izuku's arm over his shoulders, helping the green-haired teen up. Let's get you to recovery, girl. Thanks. Well, what are you waiting for? All Might asked the villains. If only Numa were here. If it were him, Shigaraki was losing it, and Kurojairi knew it. Shigaraki, please calm yourself. If you look more closely, you can clearly see the damage Numa succeeded in dealing with him, he pointed out. It would appear the children are rearing away. It's true that reinforcements are certain to make their appearance in mere minutes. However, I tender the proposal, Shigaraki, that if you and I combine our efforts, there might still be ample chance to murder him. Yeah, you're right, totally utterly on the nose. After all this trouble, how could we fail to defeat the final boss? Above any other consideration we must avenge Numa, Kurojairi said, as the two attacked. However, as soon as they launched forward towards the hero, Izuku took a deep breath and released his chakra. A powerful gust of compressed wind chakra came out of his mouth that took the form of a single large, crushing sphere of wind chakra. The wind chakra came at the villains hard, as it pushed both of the villains back due to the strong force of the wind. Are you okay, Midoriya? Kirishima asked, as Izuku coughed. Don't push yourself, sorry. Then a sound of a gun rang through the area, as Shigaraki was shot in the leg. Sorry partners, a male voice said. He wore a brown cowboy hat which had metallic plates with a stylized S, a black and white sleeveless jumpsuit, orange calves, a yellow gas mask, light brown gloves over long black arm warmers, and a red cape, as well as having dark gray dreadlocks. He also had a white vest connected to a belt, black arm guards, and white gloves with a gun holster on his hips with black boots. He held a gun that he had used to easily shoot Shigaraki from a long distance. This was Snipe. However, he was not alone. Partners? Does he mean partners? We're regrettably late, Nedza said, as he entered with Snipe. I came back with all the people I could scrape together. He was accompanied by other heroes, and Ida was also there. Ah, they came, it's our game over screen, Shigaraki sighed. Back to the drawing board, Kurogyri. Snipe then fires using his quirk to hit Shigaraki, Kurogyri, and the other villains. However, Kurogyri had already used his quirk to warp both him and Shigaraki out of there. At the same time, the hero 13 was using his quirk to suck in Kurogyri and his quirk. For the time being, we've failed, Shigaraki said, as he stared at All Might one last time. But we'll get you next time. A symbol of peace, All Might. And with that, they vanished. What is tarnation? Snipe muttered. Man, they broke in so flashily, and yet we still let them get away. Present Mike added after he took out some remaining villains. They really hit us where our guard was down, said another hero who placed Nezu on the ground, as he looked down at the previous location the main villains were. He had short, spiky gray hair. He also had a bulky build, and 2 prominent lower canine teeth which appeared even when his mouth was closed with an X-shaped scar on the left side of his face, underneath his left eye. This was Blood King. Never mind that for now, we must tend to the students, the principal said. Not just them either, the hero Cementos said. He appeared to be a humanoid block of cement, and his body's shape is evenly blocky all around his body. His eyes were closed, most of the time, with lips that were pulled upwards. He wore a sleeveless black shirt with collar, and black shorts along with a belt. Yes, Nezu nodded. Yes indeed. Should we go back to All Might? Kirishima asked. No, Midoriya, don't enter the light. Ao Izuku winced at the sound that assaulted his ears thanks to Kirishima. Sorry, Ao Shigaraki said, as he landed on the floor of what appeared to be a bar. They shot my leg. We were completely defeated even when Numa was done in. Our underlings were routed instantly, even the kids were strong, and the symbol of peace was none the worse for wear. You were totally wrong, Sensei. No, I wasn't. A voice came from a computer monitor. I was simply over-optimistic, but you know, it seems they underestimated us. I'm glad the Villain Alliance's name is so cheap. Incidentally, what has become of that joint work of Sensei's and mine? Has Numa's body not been retrieved? I'm afraid he was sent flying, and if we don't know the precise coordinates of his position, I would not be able to search for him no matter how many times I warped. Kurogyri told Sensei. We just didn't have that kind of time. Even though I went as far as loading him up with power to rival All Might's, oh well, can't be helped. What a shame. That reminds me, Shigaraki mumbled from the floor. There was a kid that could use different quirks. Oh, the voice was certainly intriguing. He could manipulate water to form a dragon, and use water to cut through Numa. He even breathed fire, and shot out a powerful sphere of wind from his mouth too. He could even turn his skin to a darker color to gain more strength, and his eyes were pupilless white, but changed to red with a single tomo in each eye. Shigaraki listed off what he saw. Sensei, is he too a Numa? Or does he have a similar quirk as you, Sensei? This is the first time I've heard of this, Sensei mumbled. I see. I highly doubt that someone else could create Numa like me, but a similar quirk could exist. Thank you for bringing this up, Shigaraki. Sensei? The teen asked. First get your leg patched. You're a symbol that is necessary for the league. Next time, you must show the world the true horror of your existence. But what of the kid? The man chuckled on the other side. We'll take care of that later. First we need to prepare, he told the teen. A quirk like that. It seems I need to look into this kid that has gotten Shigaraki's attention. A quirk like that could cause some problems, but maybe, just maybe, darkness, the only thing Izuku could see in this void. He had no idea how long he had been walking, but it felt like years. He briefly wondered if he died. Maybe he was dead, and roaming the afterlife. He had already questioned himself about whether he was dead or not, so he decided to continue onwards, as he saw a small glowing orb of light. If he had to describe the color of the orb, he would say rainbow. As he closed the distance, he began to reach out to it. You were holding back, it said. Huh, you could have easily disposed of them all, the ever-changing orb said, as the multiple colors moved like water. You held back. All it would take would be one move, and you could have avoided any injuries, and the threat would be gone, the orb said, leaving no room for Izuku to defend himself. Are you afraid of your own power? If you wanted to, you could end the world in around more or less than a week. Izuku just stared at the talking orb. The voice was familiar. Who are you? Me? The orb asked, as suddenly the black void was replaced by the same pattern as the orb. Izuku Midoriya, I am you. The teen stumbled for a second before looking back at the orb. Was it him, or did it change sizes? Me? He stuttered, as the orb's color was replaced by a warm light. I am thou art I, the orb said. Do you realize where you are now? I'm in my mind, my subconsciousness, a mindscape. That is correct, Izuku's subconscious said. I am you, both the one that you are now, and the feelings you don't even know on the inside. Your feelings deep down. The orb paused for a while before continuing. Yet also what you will one day create, and what you are connected to. The orb started to change its shape, as the rainbow void around them changed once more. morphing into whatever it could, as the world around him changed to that of a blue sea hovering overhead with multiple white clouds. As Izuku found himself standing on top of a building, it looked like a city. No, he was in a city. The chakra user watched as the orb disappeared, only for a large tree to sprout from the ground, destroying and going through multiple buildings except the one that he was on. All the other buildings were left unscathed. It was only the buildings in front of him, close to him. A tree? The teen wondered, as the withered-looking tree. Yes, the tree with a voice that was deeper and distorted than his voice said. I have explained before, you know this. You're me, but also not me. You are definitely me, and probably my subconscious. But what I'm connected to, I don't understand, he said. Will you embrace your power now? The orb asked. Will you stop holding back? You are currently unconscious, but when you reawaken, will you hold yourself back, or will you finally embrace your full potential? It seems that something needs to be said to you. Izuku raised his eyebrow. Needs? Not wanted? Izuku watched as a black sap poured out of the tree. What's happening? Izuku, I am your past, present, and even your future, the tree said, as the black sap formed into a humanoid that was taller than Izuku. It seemed to be a male human with long hair and armor, and he had his arms crossed. Yet still a silhouette remained, as two eyes had opened. It looked down at the young hero with a reminiscent look in its eyes. Izuku, he said in a voice much like his own, albeit deeper. Do you recognize me? Are you me? The figure nodded. I am your future. Wait, does that mean? Yes, I sent a message back to the past. With our abilities, it's not that hard to do so, he spoke. I believe the tree, or rather yourself, told you what this is, correct? Izuku nodded. Yes, my past and present, my inner feelings, what I created, and what I am connected to, as well as my future, he said. But it's also kind of confusing. I understand. I was you after all. Was it? The future isn't set in stone. It can be changed. The older Izuku kept his arms crossed. That's why I appeared here. To make sure the future happens correctly? Not entirely. Even without my appearance, you will become me. It has happened before. Izuku was about to speak, but before he could even say a word, the older him continued. I know you have questions, and I know you're confused or why I have appeared before you, he said. I am only here to get you to stop holding back. You have unlimited, unstoppable power at your fingertips. It's time to stop and embrace it all. You know we are right, both the tree and the silhouette said. Remember what we talked about today, the older Izuku said to the younger, and I will see you soon. Izuku watched as the black sap formed into a human shape, fell to the ground like water, and dissolved. Izuku didn't notice he was sitting on the building's roof as he tried to wrap his mind around all of this. Past, present, future, connections, creations, my own feelings. He looked down to one of his hands as he stared at it, as it darkened. It's true, I was holding back my potential, my full capabilities, but why? Your body. Can you handle it? The tree offered a reason. What would people think about multiple quirks? What if I am targeted by people who want my quirk? I understand. The tree didn't say anything as Izuku looked at the tall tree. It was bigger than he thought. You know what you have to do now, right? Izuku asked the tree. I do, the tree responded. I will stop holding myself back subconsciously. Izuku smiled. Yes, I will. Izuku shot up as he panted. What a fever dream. He looked down at his hand and glared at it, willing his chakra through it. He knew what to do. It was time to stop holding himself back. It was time to unleash the full potential of his chakra. Izuku had left the bed he was residing in. Apparently it was the infirmary. He guessed that recovery girl had been gone for a while, and suspected that he wouldn't be up just yet. Glancing at a mirror, he was fine. Well, he looked fine, and he felt fine. No damages that he could see. Recovery girl did a good job with his recovery. Maybe can he do that? Could he do that? Could he change his elemental chakra to a healing chakra? He would definitely have to try it out. But first, it was time to leave, time to regroup with the others, and judging by the clock, it seemed that they had 10 minutes before being released to head off home. Had he been asleep that long? He couldn't have. He could have sworn that. Wait, how did he collapse in the first place? Kirishima was bringing him to the recovery girl, and then he was unconscious. Was it due to the villains, or was it due to recovery girl? He continued down the hallway from recovery girl's infirmary. He was still in his hero costume, and had plans to reach the changing rooms before doing anything else. If anyone saw him walking through the hall, they would have noticed a change in his walk, a more powerful stride in his step, as if he gained a boost of confidence. He was going to fully embrace himself. No, he had already embraced himself. Both his outer self and the inner self he wasn't aware of fully. Izuku Midoriya had changed. What are you doing? A voice called. Izuku exited the changing room, dressed in his normal school outfit. You're not supposed to be awake yet. It was recovery girl. You shouldn't be walking around like this, she frowned. Come back to the infirmary. I'm fine. Fine? She asked. Walking around like this, and waking up much? Much earlier than expected is not fine. She approached. Are you saying that it's a miracle? He asked. I thought you healed me? She gave him a look. Heal you I did, but this is different. How is it different? He asked after a while. You healed faster than a majority of my healthiest patients, especially after multiple blows to the head, or rather a single blow to the head, which alone is equivalent to multiple blows, she told him, as she drank from her cup, which she either got from the teacher's lounge or the cafeteria. Now, even if you are okay, as you say, there could still be unseen problems. And you want to give me another checkup? She nodded at his question, as he went back to the infirmary. You had many visitors, you know, she mumbled. Also, what am I supposed to tell your mother now? I told her you needed to spend time in the infirmary after what happened, but it seems you'll be going home today. Now I am going to ask you some questions, nothing too serious. She said, do you smoke? No. Do you drink? No. Are you sexually active? No. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. After more questions, she began her examination of his skull after Numu's attack. Well, you are fine, she said. Does your quirk have self-healing abilities? Or did you harden your body with your quirk, or perhaps covered your skull? I didn't cover my head with my quirk, but I haven't discovered the full potential of my quirk yet, so healing abilities is not out of the question. I wouldn't be surprised if I did have healing abilities. Recovery Girl gave him a more intrigued look. You might have to look into that later, she said. Healing abilities like that would come in handy. In fact, keep me updated if you discover anything. Will do, he nodded. With a satisfied nod, she moved away, and placed his school bag on the desk. You are free to go home now, she said. I can just go? He asked, getting a nod from the old woman. Yes. You also have 2 days off, as does everyone else. Also, I'm unsure if your teacher said this, but the sports festival is coming up too. Izuku nodded knowingly. He used to watch the sports festival when it was televised, sometimes with Momo. Oh dear. Momo. He really hoped she was okay, and that he didn't worry her too much. Don't worry, your classmates are fine. Hearing that, Izuku calmed down immensely. Everyone was safe. Now shoo you medical mystery. She started pushing him out of the infirmary. Don't bother heading to your class, you only have like a minute left. It was then he found himself in the hallway. Shrugging, he flung his bag on one of his shoulders before heading home. Wait, the infirmary door immediately opened. If your friends come, I'll tell them what happened. And the door immediately closed. Izuku just turned around and left. On an old decaying ruin of a building, a figure had their eyes closed. The figure was that of a man that had his arms crossed and wore emerald armor with numerous metal plates. His hair was waist-length with shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face. He opened his eyes as he saw a red-tinted sky and smirked. His purple-red eyes shined dangerously. I can't wait for our dance, he said, as he stared into the distance, as a loud roar erupted behind him far away. And for you to wake up to the hidden reality you kept yourself blind to, he said seemingly to something else, as his eyes were focused on whatever he was waiting for. Then his smirk turned into one made from the darkest of nightmares. The end. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.